Chapter 1. Uchiha Yuzuru Headpat tilde subscribe for more amazing novel audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, and share Infinite Novel Audio Konoha Village, the Uchiha Clan grounds. Dozens of Uchiha had gathered outside Naka Shrine, standing in twos and threes. Low chatter broke the stillness of the night. Yakumi, you've heard right. This time it sounds like Yuzuru Senpai is about to be promoted to squad captain. As expected of Senpai Yuzuru, so young and already a captain, if I'm not mistaken, he should be the youngest squad captain ever. Right, even Lord Fugaku hadn't pulled that off at Senpai Yuzuru's age. In Abai, we're about to join the police force too. Do you think we'll be assigned under Senpai Yuzuru? Hope so. The two boys, no more than 10 years old, stole a furtive glance at the senior Yuzuru. They were whispering about. Uchiha Yuzuru was leaning casually against a tree, a long blade slung at an angle across his back. His black hair fluttered in the wind, his jet-dark eyes were deeper than the night itself. Even though he was doing his best to keep calm, the faint rise and fall of his chest betrayed the turmoil inside. Just moments ago, as if waking from a dream, he had recovered memories of a previous life. Damn it, treated like a speed bump, Yuzuru muttered inwardly. A die-hard Naruto fan and a meme-loving arena player, Yuzuru had gone out, dazed, to grab food after getting hard-stomped by some Anbu kid again. He'd barely stepped onto the street when fate blindsided him. After fighting with everything he had and still losing, he'd crossed over, becoming a member of the Uchiha in the world of Naruto. A real villager now. Only today had the memories finally clicked into place. Uchiha, Yuzuru rubbed his brow and drew a long breath. The Uchiha possessed a powerful bloodline limit, but their end wasn't exactly a happy one in the original story, though they co-founded the village. They were pushed to the margins by Konoha's leadership and ultimately annihilated. Worst of all, a clan that strong was wiped out without the enemy spending a single soldier. Anyone would call that humiliating, not saying they had to win, but at least fight back, right? In the end, they'd been talked into a corner. Still, after thinking it through, Yuzuru didn't dwell on it. It was year 41 of Konoha. The night of the massacre was still far off. With his past life memories awakened, there was plenty of room to maneuver, save the clan or look after himself. Hide his name or run far away, those were choices for later, when he could judge the lay of the land. As Yuzuru pondered, a crisp chime rang in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully awakening past life memories and binding the clan system. Current bound clan. Uchiha Clan, current clan population prosperity, purple, prosperity tiers, white, green, blue, purple, gold, cyan, crimson. Unique trait, irreversible. Irreversible. After gaining power-ups from rewards, even if the clan population declines, it will not affect the host's own strength. However, the host will not gain power from a clan population prosperity increase again until the clan population returns to its peak period. Tip: the stronger the clan, the greater the feedback to the host. Claimable clan chests, white chest, green chest, blue chest, purple chest, system online. Congratulations on receiving a newcomer pack with the cascade of prompts. The corners of Yuzuru's mouth lifted. Good, the goal was now clear, and there was no need to hesitate anymore. A clan system, rise together, fall together. Uchiha, he was saving them. System, open the newcomer pack. He spoke in his heart. At once, the voice returned, ding. Reward obtained, 1 transfer scroll consumable. Transfer scroll. Mark a location in advance, then transfer all clan members there in one go. At that, Yuzuru's eyes lit up and ideas flashed like lightning. A scroll that could move the entire clan. In that case, there was no need to keep swallowing Konoha's contempt. He could already picture it. One morning, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo realize every last Uchiha is gone. Their faces would be priceless. Hostile to the Uchiha. See us as a threat? Then let's see how leisurely your lives remain after the Uchiha are gone. After a moment's thought, Yuzuru willed the remaining 4 chests open. Ding, white chest opened. Reward, Shuriken throwing technique plus genin level chakra. Ding, green chest opened. Reward, 5 nature chakra plus chunin level chakra. Ding, blue chest opened. Reward, Uchiha style Kinjutsu plus Jonin level chakra. Ding, purple chest opened. Reward, Mangekyo Sharingan Choice Chest plus Cage Level Chakra. A warm current surged through his limbs. Chakra within him ballooned at a frightening pace. In an instant, it swelled to an astounding level. At the same time, training insights for the Shuriken throwing technique and Uchiha-style Kenjutsu surfaced in his mind. Yuzuru barely spared them a glance. He went straight to the Mangekyo Sharingan Choice Chest. Mangekyo Sharingan Choice Chest. Select one pair of Mangekyo ocular techniques. 1. Tsukayomi no Mikoto plus Amaterasu. 2. Amaterasu plus Kagutsuchi. 3. Amaterasu plus Tsukayomi. 4. Dual Kamui. 5. Kadomatsu Kami. Staring at the options, Yuzuru's mouth went a little dry. These rewards were busted in the best way. He didn't hesitate. Dual Kamui. Dual Kamui was the Mangekyo technique of Uchiha Abido. It let the user phase between intangibility and tangibility, snipe at range by warping space, and came with a private dimension to boot. Offense and defense, advance and retreat, all covered. Even in games, Kamui's intangibility was notoriously hard to counter. In the original, Abido turned the entire shinobi world upside down with just one Mangekyo. Given the chance to get both eyes Kamui, Yuzuru could only say, "Anyone not picking it is a fool, ding. Congratulations to the host on successfully obtaining the reward, double Kamui." As the system notification sounded, Uchiha Yuzuru's spirit power and his chakra, which had just reached the cage level, began to soar again. Within seconds, his power leapt yet another tier. With a thought, a few flying insects drifted straight through his body as if nothing were there, unnoticed by anyone. He tested the sensation and couldn't help pressing a hand to his brow, head tilted as a low laugh spilled out. New power. Heh, I didn't think it'd be this strong. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 2, Wicked Eye Fugaku. Nothing more. The sudden burst of laughter pierced the quiet night, drawing every Uchiha around Naka Shrine to look over. No one knew why this rising genius of the clan had laughed out of nowhere. Yuzuru ignored the stares. He might be a transmigrant, but he was Uchiha through and through. Having suddenly gained such powerful strength, it would be an insult to his current identity not to deliver an Uchiha-style signature burst of laughter. Knowing all eyes were on him, Yuzuru opened his eyes again. The profound Mangekyo pattern had vanished, leaving only 3 dark tamo turning slowly in his gaze. Even that much filled Uchiha Yakumi and Uchiha Inabai, standing nearby with envy. 3 tamo Sharingan, it was the power every Uchiha dreamed of. Trading a glance, Yakumi whispered, "What's up with Uchiha Yuzuru?" Laughing that loudly, and with his 3 tamo Sharingan open, something feels off. Inabai snorted, unable to resist snapping back. What's off about it? He's excited, obviously. If I were 14 and already a squad captain with a 3 tamo Sharingan, I'd be even more hyped than Yuzuru. The youngest captain in history. After tonight, Lord Fugaku might really be outshone by Yuzuru. Before Inabai could finish, Yakumi nudged his arm. He turned and realized Uchiha Fugaku had somehow come up behind them. Lo, Lord Fugaku. Yakumi and Inabai bowed at once. In the moonlight, Fugaku's tall silhouette fell over them, drying their lips with nerves. As the clan leader's only son, Fugaku had been called a genius since childhood. Later, in the Second Great Ninja War, he earned the name Wicked Eye Fugaku. A severe, unyielding face paired with overwhelming strength gave him a crushing presence. Caught gossiping behind his back, the 2 freshly minted genin felt their breath hitch. Fortunately, Fugaku clearly wasn't inclined to press them. After a single glance, he set his eyes past them, on Yuzuru. Naka Shrine forbids loud clamor. Do you acknowledge your fault? Feeling the pressure rolling off Fugaku, Yuzuru only arched a brow and looked at him, offering no answer. Fugaku's expression cooled further as he stepped closer. Uchiha Yuzuru, I'm speaking to you. Did you hear me? You're noisy. Yuzuru frowned and snapped the word. The air froze. Everyone held their breath. Within the clan, both Fugaku and Yuzuru were star shinobi. And many had debated which of them would prove stronger in the future. No one expected the 2 to square off like this tonight, and so suddenly. Yuzuru's got guts. He's giving Captain Fugaku no face at all. Fugaku was the one picking a fight first, so what? In terms of strength, it's still Captain Fugaku. Yuzuru's in for it this time. Yuzuru could more or less understand Fugaku's provocation. Among the Uchiha, contests within the clan were as common as breathing. It was the simplest, most direct, most convincing way to settle status. Only the strong were respected. Ignoring the murmurs, Yuzuru stepped up to face Fugaku. Whatever the reason, since the other party had come knocking, he had no reason to back down. Besides, he'd never had much goodwill toward this future clan head. Of the original story, so indecisive that he helped doom the Uchiha. Now that he was bound to the clan, this was a perfect chance to establish his authority among the people. Fugaku was the current leader's son, and a standout among the young generation. Using Fugaku as a stepping stone to prestige couldn't be more fitting. With that thought, Yuzuru came to a halt before him and said coolly, "If you want to lecture an Uchiha, words alone won't cut it." Fugaku smiled. He heard the subtext, "Power decides who gets to speak, arrogant brat." Think a 3-tamo Sharingan puts you on my level. Tonight he'd learn. Not all 3-tamo are equal. Though the clan assembly is about to begin, for the Uchiha, showing strength doesn't always mean using the most primitive kind. With a cold snort, Fugaku's dark eyes turned scarlet, revealing his own 3-tamo Sharingan. It's a bit like bullying the young, but don't blame me. Kids who have never been hit by reality don't live long. As his words fell, the 3-tamo in his eyes began to spin at speed. A powerful, domineering ocular force surged toward Yuzuru. Lately, people kept comparing Yuzuru to him, and whispers were spreading that Yuzuru might even be better. He didn't resent the boy for it, but as a one-slotted prodigy himself, Fugaku had his pride. He'd see for himself whether this so-called genius, said to outshine him, truly deserved the praise. Facing Fugaku's offensive, Yuzuru sneered inwardly as his own tamo began to turn. Sensing the clash of ocular power, the onlookers grew excited. Pairs of scarlet eyes lit the night one after another. A Genjutsu duel settling it with the Sharingan of our Uchiha. Not bad. Who do you think wins, Fugaku or Yuzuru, please? Yuzuru's gifted, sure, but he isn't fully grown yet. He can't beat Fugaku. Right, the prodigy's about to take his first hard loss. For this sudden showdown, most of the clan still favored Fugaku. Genius for genius. Fugaku was 9 years older than Yuzuru, and in the prime of a shinobi's strength, under their expectant gazes, the two waves of tyrannical ocular power crashed together. And then, against all expectations, within mere seconds, Fugaku dropped to one knee. Sweat drenched his brow and back. His whole posture sagged, his spirit clearly battered. Every jaw fell open. Plainly, in that Genjutsu exchange, Fugaku had lost. Wicked Eye Fugaku, nothing special. Looking down on him from above, Yuzuru's scarlet 3-tamo radiated suffocating pressure. He now possessed the Mangekyo. In spirit and ocular force alike, Fugaku couldn't compare. Crushing him was only natural. Chapter 3, A Lesson Without Pain is Meaningless Crack. The sound of a bone snapping yanked everyone back to reality. Even the proud Uchiha were left gaping when they saw Yuzuru twist Fugaku's arm out of joint. Yuzuru. Wasn't that a bit reckless under everyone's stare? Fugaku rose, clutching his arm, teeth clenched to stifle any sound. With his mind still reeling from the psychic blow, staying conscious at all was already his limit. Looking at Uchiha Fugaku's pale complexion, Yuzuru deactivated his Sharingan. Dong, a mellow bell rang just then, and the doors of Naka Shrine slowly swung open. At the sight, Yuzuru tugged his collar into place and turned to head inside. By the way, call it picking on the weak if you want, but don't blame me. Lessons without pain are meaningless. If a person sacrifices nothing, they gain nothing. Next time you come challenge me, think about the arm I broke today. The confidence Fugaku had boasted before the fight was handed back to him almost word for word. Feel his face burning. This was truly too humiliating. He stared, a little dazed, at Yuzuru's back as he walked away. As the one who'd faced him directly, Fugaku had the truest sense of Yuzuru's ocular power. Under that surging, violent impact, he hadn't even been able to resist. Proud since childhood, Fugaku felt a frustration he'd never known, same 3-tamo Sharingan. So why was the gap this huge? People filed into Naka Shrine, though the murmurs never stopped. No one had expected a showdown between the old and new prodigies to end like this. I can't believe it. Yuzuru actually beat Fugaku. Yeah, and did you notice? Compared to Fugaku, Yuzuru looked completely unaffected. That only means one thing. Yuzuru's Dojutsu power is far superior to Fugaku's. Yikes. Terrifying. The power Yuzuru had revealed left the Uchiha present unsettled. If they hadn't witnessed it themselves, they'd never have believed it. Same 3 Tamo. Wasn't Yuzuru's ocular force a bit too monstrous in the underground chamber beneath the shrine? Yakumi and Inabai sat beside Yuzuru, still a little keyed up. Yuzuru-senpai, you were amazing. You actually beat Fugaku-sama. Yeah, we thought you were done for a minute there. When Yuzuru didn't respond, they didn't mind. Yakumi said, eyes shining, worthy of the youngest squad captain. If only I could be as strong as you someday. Inabai rubbed his chin, thought for a moment, then said, Yakumi, while you might become strong like Yuzuru-senpai, it's not very likely you'll become as strong as Yuzuru-senpai. Then let me ask you, let me ask you, let me ask you, let me ask you. Yakumi shot back, refusing to yield. Listening to the two bicker, Yuzuru felt his head start to throb and simply shut his eyes to rest. Compared to everyone else, the one who had defeated Fugaku felt neither excitement nor thrill. In a straight ocular contest, 3 Tamo were never going to match the Mangekyo. He wasn't Itachi facing Sasuke. With the Mangekyo in his eyes, beating a 3 Tamo Fugaku was only natural. After a short wait, Uchiha Teru, the clan leader, appeared before the crowd. Quiet, everyone. The clan assembly begins now. Teru glanced first at Fugaku holding his arm, then almost imperceptibly at Yuzuru before continuing. First announcement. The plan is to appoint Yuzuru as captain of Police Force Squad 7. We'll vote now. Raise your hand if you agree. Everyone present had known about this beforehand. And after Yuzuru's decisive win over Fugaku, nearly every hand shot up at once. Even Fugaku raised his. Then it's settled, Teru said, sweeping his gaze around. Yakumi, Inabai, you two will serve under Yuzuru. Assigning squad members was simple compared to choosing a captain. Teru decided it on the spot. Inabai and Yakumi sprang to their feet, thrilled. Yes, sir. Following Yuzuru had been their wish all along. Next, we'll discuss the clan's budget expenditures. Under Teru's chairing, they moved through topics. Distribution of clan industries, training for clan shinobi, exchange of ninjutsu resources, even landscaping, and planning for clan grounds and building projects. Attending to every detail, the discussion only finally concluded well past midnight. Yuzuru listened intently. Now that he was bound to the clan system, the clan was the foundation of his strength. Matters tied to the clan's development couldn't be ignored. All right, next let's discuss how to elevate the clan's influence in the village so we can prepare in advance for the next Hokage election. At that, the drowsy crowd perked up. Within moments, someone raised a hand to speak. Clan head, I think we should increase the police force's manpower and work even harder to maintain public order. That'll raise our clan's standing in the village. I say we challenge all the other clans' powerhouses, one by one, so everyone understands the might of the Uchiha. Lord Teru, we should regularly have our elite instruct the rest, share experience and techniques, and answer training questions. Listening to the suggestions, Teru sighed inwardly, the same old lines, not useless but proven of little effect. The clan's influence in the village was waning by the day, and their reputation was getting worse. Sometimes he couldn't understand it. Despite their efforts, why did it feel like their position was only getting harder? Just then, a young voice sounded. Clan head, I do have an idea about how to make the Uchiha clan stronger. Teru looked up to see Yuzuru standing. At the sight of the boy, the clan's acknowledged new-gen prodigy, just 14 and fresh off a win over Fugaku, curiosity stirred despite himself. What kind of view would he offer on a matter like this? Even so, Teru didn't expect much. Unlike pure combat, this wasn't something you could handle without experience and perspective. Clearly, the others felt the same. Many looked at Yuzuru with amused expressions. While they greatly respected Yuzuru's strength, this matter had absolutely nothing to do with strength. Yuzuru, since you bring it up, why don't you share your thoughts? At Teru's signal, Yuzuru spoke evenly. If we want the Uchiha to grow stronger and raise our influence, there's a simple and effective way. Seeing how serious he was, everyone couldn't help adopting a serious look themselves. Then Yuzuru said slowly, "Have children. Have children, have children." Everyone stared, dumbfounded. Then they looked at each other, faces twisting into odd expressions. Have children. How was that a solution? Ignoring the looks, Yuzuru went on. I propose that from now on, clan members must marry before the age of 20. We marry early, have more, and go above and beyond. Only then can the Uchiha grow ever stronger. Hearing Yuzuru's shocking proposal, quite a few felt insulted. Fugaku couldn't help rising to his feet. Yuzuru, watch your words. This is a clan assembly, not a place for your nonsense. As soon as he spoke, voices chimed in. Exactly. Are you looking down on us, pinning all hope on the next generation? I thought you had backbone, but you're soft at the core. The Uchiha won't sink to relying on babies to prove ourselves. Seeing tempers flare, Teru quickly raised a hand to stop them. Once the hall quieted, he said to Yuzuru, "Explain your reasoning." Everyone is waiting to hear it. Yuzuru wasn't surprised by the reaction. Asking a proud clan to stake its future on childbearing did bruise their pride. With that in mind, he chose his words and continued. Population is the foundation of a shinobi clan. The more people, the stronger the clan. In the Warring States era, many clans raided other regions to seize people, purely to boost their numbers. Take Konoha as an example. When the village was founded, the Senju and the Uchiha were the undisputed great houses. But what about now? The Senju has vanished, and the Uchiha clan can only barely maintain appearances based on our past glory. Meanwhile, the Sarutobi clan, Shimura clan, Uchiha clan, and Mitokado clan, the very families we once stepped over, have become powers Konoha cannot ignore. The reason Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo dare to aggressively suppress shinobi clans now is precisely because of the confidence given to them by their clan members, isn't it? Power and strength go hand in hand. Even with Tobirama's endorsement, without strong clan support, they could never have kept such a grip on authority. The hall fell silent under Yuzuru's questioning. Everyone knew he wasn't wrong. 4 clans without even a Kekkei Genkai had used sheer population to become behemoths the Uchiha hesitated to provoke. Seeing their silence, Yuzuru shifted tone. If Sarutobi and Shimura could rise on numbers, the Uchiha can do it even better. Compared to them, we possess a powerful bloodline limit and far greater talent for becoming shinobi. Given equal numbers, which clan could stand against the Uchiha? Flattered without it being obvious, many faces around the hall showed a hint of pride. Come to think of it, he's not wrong. Having more children isn't so hard to accept. He could have just said increase population. Saying have children is a bit blunt. I didn't process it at first, but Yuzuru's point checks out. Seeing the clan members become active again, Yuzuru continued. Therefore, getting married and having children is not a shame, but the centennial strategy for the revitalization of our Uchiha clan. It is our fundamental policy. Without population as the bedrock, everything else is a castle in the air. For the prosperity of the Uchiha, I, Yuzuru, am willing to lead by example. For many, hearing such a theory for the first time sent shockwaves through their hearts. They'd never considered strengthening the clan from this angle. Yet the more they thought about it, the more it made sense. Hard to refute it all. Only, leading by example on this particular matter felt a bit odd. Seeing their reactions, Yuzuru didn't push further. He'd floated marriage and childbearing now to prime a clan obsessed with fighting. To make it a formal rule would probably have to wait until he held real power. Yuzuru's idea is unconventional. We won't force everyone to marry before 20 like he suggested, but we can all make an effort in that direction. All right, that concludes today's assembly. Before dawn's first light, Teru adjourned the meeting. The Uchiha filed out one after another. Just as Yuzuru was about to rise as well, Teru said quietly, "Yuzuru, you and Fugaku stay a moment." Much as he wanted to test his new power, Yuzuru wasn't in a rush. He followed to Teru's residence and sat opposite him, with Fugaku facing them both. Teru poured tea for the two and smiled. "Yuzuru, your strength surprised me. I didn't expect even Fugaku would no longer be your match." He gave Yuzuru a measuring look, genuine astonishment on his face. As Fugaku's father, Teru knew his son's power well. With a 3-tamo Sharingan, Fugaku was a standout even among Jonin. Who'd have thought he'd lose to Yuzuru so easily? Yuzuru didn't explain much. He just smiled. "You're not here to make trouble for me on your son's behalf, are you, clan head?" Fugaku couldn't take that. His face flushed. "Yuzuru, my father isn't that petty. I lost because I was outmatched. As your rival, I will defeat you fair and square one day." Yuzuru laughed lightly and downed his tea. "An enemy who loses to me is never regarded as an opponent. I will give you time to catch up, until you can no longer even see my distant shadow." As his words fell, Uchiha Fugaku was stunned for a full 10 seconds before recovering. Then he felt like ants were crawling all over him. He couldn't beat the smug brat, and he couldn't out-talk him either. Infuriating little punk. He's so annoying. Seeing Fugaku's composure wobble, Teru cleared his throat and cut in at the right moment. "The reason I asked you both to stay is to hear your thoughts. What are your views on the next Hokage candidate?" Chapter 5. No matter the opponent. An Uchiha can't be Hokage. Hearing Teru's question, Yuzuru didn't rush to speak. He lifted his teacup and took a light sip. Fugaku, meanwhile, frowned and sank into serious thought. After a while, seeing Yuzuru still silent, Teru prompted. "Fugaku, you go first." "Yes, father." Fugaku considered, then said slowly, "As things stand, the next Hokage will likely be chosen between Sakumo Hatake and Orochimaru. Although Sakumo has already been granted the right to wear the Hokage half-robe, I still lean toward Orochimaru, the third Hokage's disciple, becoming the next Hokage." Having laid out his view, Fugaku couldn't help asking, "Father, are you thinking of investing early in the next Hokage?" That would be a sound move, but after listening, Teru shook his head. "No, I'm wondering if our Uchiha clan can compete for the Hokage position ourselves. As the strongest members of the new generation in the clan, I have high hopes for both of you." "What?" Fugaku's pupils shrank. He blurted out despite himself, as if he'd heard something outrageous, "Compete for the next Hokage." What a joke. Teru glanced at the flustered Fugaku, then at Yuzuru, whose expression hadn't changed from start to finish, and felt a twinge of disappointment. He'd intended to groom Fugaku as the Uchiha's next leader, but compared to Yuzuru, Fugaku's composure fell short. Unaware of Teru's reaction, Fugaku spoke his mind. "Father, how could you think that?" He truly didn't understand. Setting aside Konoha's White Fang, Hatake Sakumo, whose single-handed exploits had terrified enemies into issuing orders to abandon missions upon encountering him. Even Orochimaru, granted the title of Sannin by Hanzo of the Salamander in the Second Great Ninja War, was already famed across the shinobi world. The two of them were unmatched in Konoha. By comparison, neither he nor Yuzuru could compete in renown or strength. Seeing Fugaku's confusion, Teru explained, "I'm not saying you'll compete with Sakumo or Orochimaru. I'm not that delusional." "Then what do you mean?" Fugaku asked, even more puzzled. While both Orochimaru and Sakumo are impeccable in reputation and strength, they share a fatal flaw. Teru looked at the two and said gravely, Age, exactly." Teru took a sip of tea, confident. "The third Hokage is in good health. If nothing unexpected happens, he could remain in office for a long time yet. In that case, by the time he steps down, both Orochimaru and Sakumo may no longer be in their prime. At that point, the Hokage might well be chosen from among the standouts of the next generation. And that would be your opportunity." Fugaku's eyes cleared as the logic clicked. Thinking it through, it sounded very plausible. Konoha had no tradition of stepping down early. Both Senju Hashirama and Senju Tabarama relinquished their office only in death, and since taking the hat, Sarutobi Hiruzen had stayed in the village, never venturing anywhere truly dangerous. At his current pace, living another 20 years wasn't out of the question. By then, Orochimaru and Sakumo would be past their golden age. Understanding dawned, and Fugaku couldn't help a note of respect. "As expected of you, father, your considerations are thorough." Then he snorted lightly at Yuzuru. "If things unfold as father predicts, you have a better chance than I do to become Hokage, Yuzuru. Work hard. The entire Uchiha will pour our resources into backing you and building your momentum. Compared to Yuzuru, he was only 5 years younger than Orochimaru. By the time Sarutobi stepped down, he'd hardly be young. And just before the assembly, Yuzuru had overpowered him with sheer ocular might. If they had to contest the Hokage seat, Yuzuru did seem the better fit. Seeing Fugaku take it so calmly, Teru nodded in satisfaction. In the Uchiha, the strong are respected. Even though Fugaku was his son, he would not suppress Yuzuru for that reason. Turning to Yuzuru, Teru asked, "What do you think?" Yuzuru set his cup down with a dull thud. Then he shook his head and sighed. "I don't know whether to call you optimistic or call you foolish. Perhaps it was this very optimism, or stubborn refusal to face reality, that led to the Uchiha's tragic end." Hearing Yuzuru's murmur, the praise Teru had expected curdled at the corner of his mouth. Not only unpraised, insulted. He nearly coughed blood. Beside him, Fugaku slammed the table, furious. "Yuzuru, what do you mean by that? Arrogance has limits. How dare you speak so rudely to the clan head?" Yuzuru glanced at Fugaku, calm. "I just didn't want to keep what I wanted to say bottled up. If you feel offended, I can apologize." "You." Fugaku felt as if he had punched cotton. His face turned red with anger, and he pointed at Yuzuru, unable to speak. He'd expected Yuzuru to lock horns. He'd been ready to fight. He hadn't expected a straightforward apology. Where was his Uchiha pride? Teru, however, looked unsurprised. Over the years, he'd seen plenty of Uchiha prodigies, some more outrageous than Yuzuru. "Yuzuru, your reasons. Is there something in my plan that I haven't fully considered, thinking of the clan's fate in the original course of history?" Yuzuru got straight to the point. "You were wrong from the start. No matter the opponent, an Uchiha can never be Hokage. From Tobirama onward, the Hokage faction had harbored deep suspicion toward the Uchiha. In their minds, the Uchiha were a time bomb in the village. Uchiha shinobi must never become Hokage. Still hoping to wait for Sarutobi to step down, by the time he does, the Uchiha will already have been slaughtered by the Hokage faction. Chapter 6. The sword hanging over our heads no matter the opponent. An Uchiha can't become Hokage. Teru and Fugaku's expressions changed once again. Teru fixed his gaze on Yuzuru and said gravely, "Give us your reasoning." Feeling their eyes on him, Yuzuru thought for a moment and decided to explain. After all, unlike him, Teru and Fugaku knew nothing of what lay ahead. If he wanted them to face reality, he needed evidence strong enough to convince. After a short pause, Yuzuru said, "Clan head Teru, Fugaku, to understand my conclusion, we have to start with the late second Hokage, Senju Tobirama, who was deeply hostile to the Uchiha." At the name, Teru and Fugaku traded a baffled look. "The second Hokage was hostile to us. Yuzuru, while our relations with the Senju were rocky before the village was founded, calling the second Hokage hostile to us feels off, doesn't it? Our position in the village today was built on the second's policies. He created the police force and granted us full authority over public order. Why would you say he was hostile to the Uchiha?" Yuzuru couldn't help finding it almost funny. No wonder a great clan like the Uchiha marched step by step toward destruction. With this kind of political mind, they'd help someone count their money even after being sold out, only having fighting and killing in their heads. It was truly ridiculous. Seeing Yuzuru remain silent, Fugaku couldn't help but urge him, "Yuzuru, why don't you speak?" Yuzuru sighed, a trace of helplessness in his tone. "It's precisely because of the police force that our reputation in the village is so poor." How so?" Yuzuru explained. "Maintaining the village's order sounds like holding real power, but anything truly important is handled directly by the Hokage's Anbu. The majority of what our police force deals with are merely conflicts between villagers. Everyday quarrels are hard to judge cleanly. Even when you can, the punished side will resent us as enforcers. And those we help eventually chalk it up as nothing more than us doing our job. No one thanks us. What builds up instead is hostility. Rumor repeated becomes truth. Even villagers we've never punished begin to avoid us out of fear. Add to that our clan's straightforward, uncompromising nature, and of course our handling will often displease people. A worsening relationship with the populace was inevitable. The second Hokage saw this clearly. That's why he ensured only Uchiha could serve in the police force. Ask yourselves, aside from the police force, is there any other power center in the village restricted to a single clan? What Yuzuru said is common sense to later generations, but to Teru and Fugaku, living inside the system, his words struck like thunder. Thoughts they'd never considered flashed through their minds. A creeping dread took hold. They'd long wondered why, after so many years, the Uchiha still felt out of step with the village, so that's where the problem lay. The Uchiha had been maneuvered into a trap years ago, and if not for Yuzuru, they might have stayed in the dark forever. A different policy sparked in Teru's mind. Licking his dry lips, he asked, voice unsteady, "Yuzuru, what about the second allowing our shinobi to stay in the village permanently without having to take outside missions?" "It's exactly what you think," Yuzuru said, shattering his last illusion. "At the right moment, all it would take is spreading something like, why must the rest of us risk our lives on missions while the Uchiha sit safely in the village doing risk-free work? Our clan's reputation would collapse overnight." That was a bomb Senju Tabarama planted on purpose. A bomb big enough to blow the Uchiha to pieces. Cold sweat beaded on Teru and Fugaku's brows. They weren't fools. They simply hadn't examined it closely. Now that the window paper was pierced, everything snapped into focus. Yuzuru's words weren't mere alarmism. A blade was indeed hanging over the Uchiha clan's head, ready to fall at any moment. They had been treating this matter as an honor all along, but they never expected so much scheming to be hidden behind it. Senju Tabarama was truly evil. After giving them a moment to think, Yuzuru continued, "And those who inherited Tabarama's mindset, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Shimura Danzo, and the rest, will never give the Uchiha a chance to turn things around. So regardless of who else is in the running, the Hokage faction will never choose an Uchiha." Teru and Fugaku exchanged uneasy looks. Fugaku pushed back. "Yuzuru, since the third took office, he hasn't enacted measures specifically targeting the Uchiha, has he? Maybe he's different from the second." Hearing this, Yuzuru glanced at Fugaku, and his right hand couldn't help but move toward the long sword at his waist. He seriously wanted to cut down this fool with a single stroke. In the original path, Fugaku clung to wishful thinking about the Hokage faction. He named his son Sasuke after the third's mentor, vacillated between coup and compromise, sent both Itachi and Shisui into Anbu to be brainwashed. Count him in, and that's 3 pairs of Mangekyo. Do nothing, and even Sarutobi and Danzo wouldn't dare make a rash move against the Uchiha, right? And the result, they managed to get the Uchiha erased anyway. Yuzuru drew a long breath, steadying himself. Fugaku wasn't the only clansman still harboring illusions about Sarutobi. To win them over completely, he'd need to strip the masks from Sarutobi and the rest. With that, Yuzuru said evenly, "Clan head Teru, try proposing this to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Reform the police force to allow in shinobi from other clans, or even civilian shinobi. Of course, you should also mention allowing Uchiha shinobi to form teams freely and go out on missions like other shinobi. That's enough for today." "Thanks for the tea." He'd said what needed saying. Some truths needed time to sink in. With him here, the clansmen would see Sarutobi and company for what they were. Let the bullets fly for a while first. Watching Yuzuru's back recede, Teru couldn't help murmuring, moved. "Sharp eyes and overwhelming strength. Seems our clan has birthed a remarkable one." Fugaku, on the other hand, was troubled. "Father, if the third is truly as Yuzuru says, what do we do?" After a moment's silence, Teru sighed. "We'll see. Perhaps Yuzuru already has a plan." "Fugaku, if things really go south, Yuzuru might be the key to breaking the deadlock. Don't butt heads with him." "Don't worry, father." Remembering Yuzuru's terrifying Dojutsu power and the insight he had just displayed, Fugaku muttered, "I'm not that petty." Chapter 7, Mikoto Uchiha and Kushina Uzumaki. By the time Yuzuru left Teru's house, the sky was completely bright. Walking the streets of the clan grounds, he saw early risers already starting their day. From breakfast stalls along the road, fragrant steam curled into the air. Drawn by the smell and with nothing in his stomach all night, Yuzuru stopped at a bun shop. "Boss, 10 buns. Sure thing. 20 ryo and I'll toss in 1 extra. Come again if you like it." The buns were plump and pale, their skins already slicked with oil. Yuzuru bit in. Scalding heat and rich broth filled his mouth. Delicious. Eating as he walked, he soon reached the alley near his front door. After a few steps, he felt eyes on him. He looked up and met the soulful stare of the breakfast shop owner across the way. On the table by the door sat a neatly packed breakfast, clearly set aside for him. Auntie Yuriko, what a coincidence. I was just about to come for breakfast. Yuzuru scratched his head, forcing a sincere smile. The well-timed belch he barely swallowed put a faint flush on his face. It's all right, Yuzuru, don't force yourself. Uchiha Yuriko glanced at the buns in his hand and waved calmly. No forcing at all. These buns were a gift from a friend. They were too enthusiastic, it was hard to refuse. Yuzuru set down money on the table, picked up the packed meal. Auntie Yuriko, I've got something to do, I'll get going. Watching him beat a hasty retreat, Yuriko chuckled and shook her head. What a cute kid, I think he blushed. Only after turning into the alley did Yuzuru let out a long breath. He'd bought breakfast from Yuriko's shop since he was small. If he was ever delayed, she'd even set some aside for him. Today, with his past life memories just awakened, he'd simply forgotten, mortifying. It's just buying breakfast somewhere else, so why does it feel like betrayal? Muttering, he met a gray-haired grandmother coming the other way. Yuzuru, I have some vegetables at home that I can't eat all of. I put them by your door, so remember to take them inside. It was his neighbor, Uchiha Riko. She had a happy family with 2 sons and a daughter, and because Yuzuru's parents had died early, she often looked after him. Even though he could support himself now, she still brought him fruit and vegetables from time to time. Yuzuru straightened her collar and smiled. Grandma Riko, thank you. Please remember to take a cane with you when you go out in the future. Cheeky brat, I'm not so old I can't walk. She scolded with a smile. Farther on, he ran into a few more familiar faces. Yuzuru, were you on night duty again? You're still young, rest more. Got it, Grandpa Shuhei. Big brother Yuzuru, look. My dad bought me a bunch of candy. Do you want some? Good kid. Too much candy rots your teeth, so I'll just take one. Well, brother Yuzuru is mean. Yuzuru, stop bullying Tekka. As he walked, Yuzuru found himself smiling more and more. The Uchiha were a clan full of warmth, and most people got along well. Even with his past memories awakened, he felt no distance from them. Yet a clan like this had ended in annihilation. A chill glinted in his eyes. This time, he would give the Uchiha a different ending. At his door, a silvery laugh rang out. Looking up, he saw a gentle-faced, black-haired girl and a red-headed girl coming out of the house across from his. Yuzuru, what are you doing here? The redhead sounded surprised to see him. Yuzuru arched a brow. Kushina, this is Uchiha territory. I should be the one asking you that, don't you think? I'm here for Makoto. Kushina answered, then asked curiously, is this your place? Yuzuru nodded. That's right. Wow, so you and Makoto are neighbors, no wonder you two are so close. Kushina lit up like she'd found a new continent. Yuzuru, can we come in and sit for a bit? At her bright energy, Yuzuru stepped aside to let them in. Even before his memories awakened, he and Makoto had been close because they were neighbors. Calling them childhood friends wouldn't be a stretch. By extension, he was on good terms with Makoto's best friend, Kushina. When Kushina first came to the village, people often bullied her. Yuzuru had stood up for her more than once. Compared to the boisterous Kushina, Makoto gave him a gentle smile. Yuzuru, are we disturbing your rest? Before he could answer, Kushina blinked. Rest. This early in the morning, Makoto explained. Yuzuru works in the police force and often pulls night duty. You didn't sleep at all, did you? Makoto's father led the 3rd squad of the police force, so she knew there had been a clan assembly last night. Though Yuzuru didn't look tired, she still gave Kushina a subtle reminder, lest her boundless energy run wild. He understood her intent and couldn't help feeling a little moved. Makoto really was gentle, always making him feel cared for without trying. Hearing the reminder, Kushina hesitated. Maybe we should visit another day. Makoto and I could go shopping instead. Yuzuru waved a hand. Since we've run into each other, come in for a bit. I bought extra breakfast. Let's eat together. The moment he saw Kushina, a few plans had flickered through his mind. Her identity was special. As the next Ninetales Jinchuriki, her comings and goings were constantly monitored. Because Uzumaki Maito was still alive. Kushina wasn't overly restricted in the village, but Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others certainly didn't want her too tangled up with Uchiha Shinobi. If he could leverage Kushina's position to show the clan just how wary Konoha's leadership was of them, it would definitely help his future plan to move the entire clan. Chapter 8, The Promise and the Experiment burp tilde so full tilde. Mikoto Uchiha and Kushina Uzumaki both rubbed their rounded stomachs and let out a simultaneous burp. Their appetites weren't small, but Yuzuru's was bigger. One meal's worth of portions was enough to stuff the both of them. Here, have some water. Yuzuru poured each of them a cup of plain water, then turned and headed for the yard. Kushina and Mikoto traded a look and got up to follow. Watching Yuzuru turn the soil, Kushina asked, curious, "Yuzuru, what are you doing?" "With a yard this big, it feels like a waste not to grow something," he answered without looking up. "I'm going to plant vegetables." At that, both girls' faces lit with interest. Vegetables. That actually sounds fun. In the shinobi world, ninja didn't do production work. Farming was for villagers outside the walls. Mikoto was better off, occasionally getting to see farmland when patrolling with clan members outside the village. Kushina was different. She was always restricted from leaving the village and knew almost nothing about such things. "Yuzuru, I want to plant some too. Do I just bury the seeds in the ground?" "Of course not." "Then can you teach me?" "Yuzuru, I want to learn how to grow vegetables with you." Sure." Mikoto took charge of buying seeds. Kushina and Yuzuru kept turning the earth. After a morning of work, the three of them had only managed to create a small vegetable patch in the yard. Wiping sweat from her brow, Kushina bounced with excitement. "Yuzuru, this is my first time planting anything. Help me take care of it, okay? I'll make time to come check on it often." Yuzuru immediately nodded and agreed. He had originally wanted to use contact with Kushina to force the Konoha higher-ups to intervene and issue a statement like Uchiha are forbidden to approach the Jinchuriki, so the clan could see how wary Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others truly were. Naturally, he wouldn't refuse her request. With his promise, Kushina hopped in place. "Then it's a deal. I'll come find you tomorrow." "Mikoto, let's go shopping." "Right." Tugged along by Kushina, Mikoto called back, "Yuzuru, father says come to our house for dinner tonight." "Got it." Once they'd gone, Yuzuru shut the door, eyes brightening. Finally, time to feel out his power properly. Inside, he sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, examining the chakra within. A quick check was enough to curve his lips. The system's chakra rewards stacked. After awakening his 3-Tamo Sharingan, he already had Jonin-class chakra. Then the system chests had granted him Genin, Chunin, Jonin, and Cage-class chakra in turn. The Genin and Chunin portions were negligible, but adding another Jonin on top of that, and then a full Cage-class reserve made his chakra more than ample. Adding to that the huge surge in chakra he received after activating the Mangekyo Sharingan, Yuzuru felt that even among Cage-level experts, only Jinchuriki with tailed beasts or shinobi with special constitutions like Hoshigaki Kasam would be able to surpass his chakra reserves. After sensing the chakra in his body, Yuzuru immediately activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, Kamui. Space around him twisted like a whirlpool, and his figure vanished. So this is the Kamui space. Unlike Obito's stone pillar forest, his Kamui dimension stretched into flat ground as far as the eye could see. It wasn't dark, either bright as broad daylight. What's more, gaining Kamui had given him a strange sense for space itself. He could place a marker on any location or object, then warp to it in an instant by invoking Kamui. The further the distance, the more chakra and Dijutsu power were consumed. That part was a bit like the Flying Thunder God technique. After another look around, Yuzuru nodded, satisfied. As things stood, his Kamui and Uchiha Obito's Kamui were not interconnected. This was for the best. He didn't want his territory to become a backyard that others could enter and exit at will. After a moment's thought, he flashed through hand signs. Wind release, great breakthrough. Fire release, great fireball technique. Water release, water formation wall. Earth release, earth flow wall. He hadn't trained any lightning release, so he stopped after casting the other 4. Originally, he did only wind and fire affinities. He could force out earth and water by shaping chakra, but it cost more and hit weaker. With 5 nature chakra, his combat power had jumped a tier. Each element had its strengths and weaknesses. With all 5, he could pick the right tool for any fight. He didn't bother testing the shuriken throwing technique or Uchiha-style kenjutsu. Those were taijutsu, one thought, and he could feel the honed, effortless control in his limbs. At this point, he had almost no weak side, a true 6-sided warrior. He invoked Kamui again and reappeared in his room. Standing, he walked for the door. Though it was shut, he slipped through as if nothing blocked him and stepped into the yard. Dojutsu power surged, and the wooden training post in the courtyard quietly snapped into 2 pieces. He waited a beat before letting the Mangekyo fade. The speed of the long-range attack is very fast, and the limit for consecutive phasing can be maintained for about 10 minutes. Murmuring to himself, Yuzuru rubbed his chin. Although his double Kamui made him slightly stronger than Uchiha Abido in the original work in terms of attack and transfer speed, he lacked Hashirama's cells, meaning he temporarily had no way to recover his Dojutsu power. It looks like there's still a lot of work to be done. Chapter 9, the plan. With a clear grasp of his abilities, Yuzuru turned back to his room and fell asleep. With so many things suddenly added to his mind, his spirit was still a bit exhausted by the time he woke. The sun had already set. After a quick wash, he heard a knock at the door. "Yuzuru, are you home?" One moment. Yuzuru straightened his clothes, opened the door, and saw the gentle face of Makoto. "Yuzuru, dinner's ready. Father is waiting." "Got it." He nodded and followed Makoto to her house. "Ha ha ha, Yuzuru, congrats on becoming squad leader. Come have a drink with me." The moment he saw Yuzuru, Lihuo Uchiha beckoned with a grin. Makoto chided at once. "Father, Yuzuru has to observe the 3 shinobi prohibitions. No drinking." Hearing this, Lihuo chuckled. "Makoto, Yuzuru proposed a policy at the clan meeting to encourage clan members to marry and have children. I see he has the guts to lead by example, so what's a little drink?" At his teasing, Yuzuru sat at the table, expression calm. "I'd love to lead by example. I'm just afraid some people won't part with their precious daughter." After speaking, Yuzuru glanced at Makoto. Under Yuzuru's undisguised gaze, Makoto's face flushed with shyness, and she lowered her head, continuously fiddling with the corner of her clothes. Strange. Why does Yuzuru feel a little different today than before? In the past, whenever the topic of the 2 of them came up, he always said training came first. He'd even said things like, "I don't have time to play dating games." But today he seemed like a different person. Could it be that hard head finally figured it out? You 2 start without me." I have laundry to do." Lihuo's smile stiffened as Makoto fled in a fluster. Yuzuru was excellent, and he and Makoto were childhood friends. It was only a matter of time. Still, the feeling of his carefully grown cabbage being munched by a pig was hard to shake, and right in front of him. Just then, Yuzuru spoke again. "By the way, the ninja tools I bought will be delivered tonight. Keep an eye on them for me, will you? Don't let them go missing. They won't get lost. If they do, I'll compensate you." Lihuo grumbled. "Good." Yuzuru smiled, lifting his chopsticks. "I've got night duty later. You drink. I'll just eat." Watching Yuzuru dig in, Lihuo tossed back his cup, aggrieved. Is this kid for real? In front of this little punk me, the future father-in-law has zero authority. After he'd eaten his fill, Yuzuru took his leave. In the original story, Makoto married Fugaku. But with him here now, that wouldn't happen. He wouldn't surrender such a perfect wife template, who was also his childhood sweetheart, to someone else. Under the cover of night, Yuzuru arrived at the police force gates. Squad 7's members were already waiting. Counting everyone but Yuzuru, there were 12, organized into 4 teams. Aside from the newcomers Inabai and Yakumi, the rest knew each other well. When Yuzuru appeared, they straightened at once, spirits high. Satisfied, he had Yakumi and Inabai introduce themselves, then assigned patrol routes to each of the 4 teams. Their beat was the residential belt near the village walls of Konoha. Most residents there were civilians, but it was often a hotspot for trouble. Once their zones were set, the teams slipped into the night one after another. Yuzuru planted his long blade beside him and sat cross-legged atop the village wall, overlooking the whole of Konoha. Right now, Sarutobi Hiruzen and Shimura Danzo are in their prime. Sakumo Hatake is still alive, and aside from Tsunade with her hemophobia, Orochimaru and Jiraiya are likely already cage class. Add Anbu, the Sarutobi, the Shimura, the Mitokado, and the Uchiha, and the Ino Shikacho trio. As we are now, the Uchiha can't match the Hokage faction. He tallied Konoha's power quietly and felt his resolve harden. With the Uchiha's current strength, staying meant being choked at every turn, and Sarutobi and the others would never sit by while the Uchiha clan grows stronger. If it were only him, with dual Kamui he feared no one. Worst case, the two sides would just go to war. But he was bound to the clan system. His strength rose with the clan's prosperity. He had no wish to see his people die in battle. If the Uchiha were to grow strong, they first had to escape Konoha's pit. Given enough time, Yuzuru was confident in leading the Uchiha clan back to Konoha. When that day came, he would reclaim everything that belonged to the Uchiha. As for being hounded by Konoha and other villages once they left, Yuzuru believed that if they showed the Uchiha's might and settled in a strong shinobi village, the problems would evaporate. After all, the Uchiha, who were not accepted in Konoha, were the shinobi clan that other shinobi villages would desperately want. For the sake of the Sharingan, what did it matter if they fought against Konoha? At dawn the next day, after buying a map of the shinobi world, Yuzuru headed home. At his door, a red-haired girl popped into view. "Yuzuru, you're back," he opened up with a smile. "Kushina, seeds don't sprout that fast." "I just wanted to check," she said, already crossing into the yard. Helpless, he followed her toward the vegetable patch. So it went. By night, Yuzuru patrolled, scouted relocation sites for the clan, and left Kamui markers around Konoha. By day, he tended the garden with Kushina. Sometimes he'd grab a meal or a movie with Makoto. Life was easy. Half a month slipped by. Seeing the tender green seedlings, Kushina couldn't help a delighted grin. "Yuzuru, we did it." He didn't quite get why she was so happy. "Kushina, we are just growing vegetables. Why are you so determined?" He originally thought Kushina was just curious for a moment, but to his surprise, Kushina had come to see him almost every other day for the past half-month. This level of enthusiasm was quite unexpected. Kushina lowered her eyelids and answered without looking up. "It's not like I have anything else I'm allowed to do. I'm a shinobi, but I sit idle. Better to pass the time growing things here with you." Chapter 10, Don't Tell Makoto a Canary in a Gilded Cage. "A what? I mean you're like a canary kept in a cage. You look glamorous, but in reality, you have no freedom at all." Kushina had told him and Makoto herself that she'd been chosen as the next Ninetales Jinchuriki, so Yuzuru had no concern about bringing it up. At his words, Kushina froze. Then her lips puckered and her eyes went wet. What do you know? I've already prepared myself to accept that fate. I came to Konoha for this very reason in the first place. Do you like that fate?" Yuzuru asked evenly. "What does liking it change? If you don't like it, then resist." Yuzuru pressed a hand to the top of her head and raised his voice. "Why accept someone else's arrangement? Why can't you do what you want? Blindly compromising will only lead to others oppressing you even more. They're already restricting you from leaving the village before you even become Jinchuriki. After you do, then what? Will you be monitored even while you sleep? Will you have to report to the Hokage just to go out shopping? There are things Lady Mito should have told you. That was all it took." The grievances she'd been holding back flooded out. Tears spilled down Kushina's cheeks as she murmured, "But I want everyone's acknowledgement. Why care so much about other people's eyes?" Yuzuru snorted. "Does their approval really matter? Approval bought by compromise, will that make you happy?" Looking into his dark eyes, Kushina felt strength drain from her limbs. She sank into a crouch, burying her head in her arms, and sobbed. I don't want to be a Jinchuriki. I don't want to be watched every moment. I want to go outside on missions with my comrades like everyone else. But I really don't know what to do." She was young, and the land of whirlpools had been destroyed. Even if she hated the path laid out for her, she didn't know how to resist, much less have the power. Hearing her finally voice what was in her heart, Yuzuru's tone softened. He sighed and sat beside her. "Kushina, those who truly acknowledge you won't force you to do anything. Take us Uchiha. Most villagers dislike us, so what? Should we change ourselves to win their approval? An Uchiha who plays politics and smiles at everyone, would that still be Uchiha?" Kushina couldn't help lifting her head to think, and suddenly laughed through her tears. What is it? Yuzuru asked, puzzled. Nothing. I just pictured you smiling sweetly at everyone. It felt wrong. She said, shaking her head. Exactly. Yuzuru smiled. Kushina, what do you actually want? I want lots and lots of friends, she said softly. I want to do the things shinobi are meant to do. I don't want to be monitored for every little thing. But if I don't become the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, a lot of people might be hurt. Some might even die. Yuzuru, what do you think I should do? Answers like that never come from someone else's mouth. You'll have to figure it out yourself. It was a deliberately vague reply. As things stood, she clearly rejected becoming a Jinchuriki. But the so-called will of fire had seeped into her, and moral obligations had boxed her in, so she accepted it in silence. Which meant this: if he could make her completely disillusioned with Sarutobi Hiruzen and that creed, she wouldn't keep wavering, and then his plan to whisk her away would be much easier. Yes, after all these days together, Yuzuru had decided to take Kushina with them when the clan relocates. He was fated to be an enemy of Sarutobi and the rest, and he had no intention of leaving behind a perfect Nine-Tails counter as Konoha's combat power. The day Sarutobi realized the Uchiha and the future Nine-Tails Jinchuriki had both vanished, those expressions would be priceless. He could hardly wait, but Yuzuru wasn't in a hurry. Kushina had lived in the village for years, under Sarutobi's subtle influence. A few sentences wouldn't undo that. Today, he only meant to pry open a hairline crack in her heart. When the time came, that tiny crack would be enough to trigger an earthquake that toppled everything, because, if he remembered right, something outrageously unfair would happen to Kushina before long. With a nudge, she'd be thoroughly disillusioned with the village leadership. What about you? Kushina bumped his shoulder, snapping him from his thoughts. What's your dream? Yuzuru considered, then said firmly, to become strong enough that everyone I care about can live freely, exactly as they wish. Never worrying about money, never being coerced by force. Even if I have to defy the whole world. The air itself seemed to still. Kushina could hear the resolve in his voice. Everyone he cares about, living freely. Even if he has to defy the world, she repeated the words, heart thudding faster. Who were the people Yuzuru cared about? If she was one of them, could he make it possible for her to do what she wanted? One thought after another flickered through her mind. Yuzuru reached out and brushed away the last traces of moisture on her cheek. Kushina jolted as if waking from a dream. She took 2 quick steps back, like a startled rabbit, and headed for the door. Yuzuru, don't tell Makoto about today. She blurted it out, her face going scarlet, and ran without looking back. Yuzuru shook his head with a smile. He hadn't been trying to take advantage. The moment had simply carried them along. Hokage building, Hokage office. Sarutobi Hiruzen watched Kushina walking down the street within a crystal ball, his pipe clicking softly between his teeth. Just then, the office door swung open under a rough hand, and a man with narrow eyes in a black-gray kimono stepped inside. Chapter 11, You'll regret this. Sarutobi looked up and said casually, Danzo, you didn't knock again. Shimura Danzo snorted and ignored that. Hiruzen, Kushina went to the Uchiha district again, letting Uchiha mix with the future Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Are you sure about this? Hiruzen exhaled a ribbon of smoke, fingers laced under his chin. She doesn't have the Nine-Tails yet. It's fine. Making friends around the village isn't a bad thing. The Uchiha are born wicked, Danzo barked. We can't even monitor what happens inside their compound. If anything happens to the Jinchuriki, you'll be responsible. Again, it would end up on me. Hiruzen rubbed at a headache. What do you propose? Hand Kushina over to me, Shimura Danzo immediately said. My route will keep her firmly under control. If he could control the future Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, his hopes of becoming Hokage would rise. Hiruzen gave a soft, derisive hum. Your methods for controlling subordinates aren't suitable for Kushina. Lady Mito wouldn't allow it. At the name Uzumaki Mito, Danzo's neck shrank, but he pressed on. Lady Mito is old. When the land of whirlpools fell, we stood by and she didn't even. Enough. I told you not to bring that up. Hiruzen's palm cracked down on the desk before Danzo could finish. Old she might be, but the Nine-Tails was sealed inside her, and she was the first Hokage's widow. If she kicked up a storm over Kushina, what would the villagers think of their Hokage? Where would his face be? Danzo. Hiruzen said coldly, I have my own arrangements for Kushina. I don't need you meddling. Danzo ground his teeth. Hiruzen, you'll regret this. Hiruzen met his eyes, voice cutting each word. Remember, Danzo, I am the Hokage. Danzo snorted again. Bang, the door slammed under his hand as he left. Almost immediately, a masked Anbu stepped in. Lord Hokage, Kushina asked me to deliver this letter to you. A letter from Kushina, Hiruzen muttered, taking it. One glance and his eyes narrowed. She wants to stop being watched. She wants to take missions like an ordinary shinobi. Freedom. He set the pipe back between his teeth, and smoke soon hazed the office. After a long while, he touched the corner of the letter to a flame. Seems it's time to set the next step in motion. Firelight hardened his expression. Kushina, don't blame me, it's all for the village. Besides, for you, Minato isn't a bad choice, is he? People are social, brimming with feeling. If you want to control someone, the surest way is through emotion. Family, friendship, love, the deeper the bonds, the more one will give up the self for the village. That was his specialty. Kano Hagakure. Three-color dango shop. The place bustled with voices. A red-haired girl sat there eating dango almost mechanically, seemingly oblivious to it all. Across from her sat a boy with bright blonde hair. Catching her stare drift, he smiled sunny and warm. Kushina, what are you thinking about? Kushina blinked, shaking off a certain lingering silhouette in her mind. Minato, you know my situation. Living under constant surveillance, it's suffocating. It's hard, Namikaze Minato said softly, but a shinobi endures anything, right? Something in that rubbed her wrong. Who told you that? Master Jiraiya, seeing her flag, Minato gentled his tone. Kushina, isn't your dream to become Hokage? Earning everyone's acknowledgement isn't easy. Kushina nodded, then asked again. If the acknowledgement comes from compromise, does it mean anything? Like forcing yourself to do what you hate just to become Hokage, is that real acknowledgement? Brilliant as he was, Minato's experience was still thin. The only creed he'd been taught was the will of fire. Faced with that philosophical knot, he hesitated. After a long think, he said slowly, becoming Hokage is the goal I want the most. For that, I'll do anything. Like or dislike doesn't enter into it. Kushina propped her chin, sighed. Minato, I mean I don't want to be a Jinchuriki, I just want a free life. That part was simple. Then I'll go with you to see the Hokage. He said immediately, we'll have them choose someone else. I can't, she shook her head. I'm the only one in the village who can suppress the Nine Tails. Ah, I see. He scratched his head at a loss and could only smile. She waved it off. Forget it. Tell me this, if you were Hokage in a situation like this, would you force someone to be a Jinchuriki? Kushina, you're overthinking it. There must be other ways. Becoming a Jinchuriki doesn't have to mean losing freedom. His eyes firmed again. And the will of fire teaches us that sometimes sacrifice for the village is unavoidable. I see. I have some other things to do, I need to go. Knowing his nature, Kushina didn't press. She rose and left. Yuzuru and Minato were her best friends besides Mikoto. Faced with the same question, they'd given her completely different answers, which should she choose for the moment, she was more lost than ever. Maybe Yuzuru was right, answers like this don't come from other people. She'd have to figure it out herself. Chapter 12, Kidnapping Konoha Village. Inside a training ground, Sarutobi Hiruzen, pipe in mouth, clapped with a genial smile. Minato, it's getting late, that's enough training for today. Sorry, Hokage-sama, Namikaze Minato said as he jogged over, scratching his head. I lost track of time. Hiruzen waved it off kindly. Since Jiraiya's been in the Rain Village for so long, I'm filling in as his teacher a bit. I'm busy most of the time, though. I can only spare a little time here and there to guide you, so don't hold it against me. Not at all. It's an honor to receive your guidance, Minato replied. Hiruzen nodded as if remembering something. He tapped his forehead. Look at this forgetful old man. He pulled a letter from his robes. Minato, Kushina wrote to me recently. This is my reply. Can you deliver it to her? No problem, Minato said, tucking it away. Leave it to me. Hiruzen put on an apologetic look. I'm sorry to trouble you so late. It's no trouble. Minato glanced up at the moon. I'll go now. As Minato's back disappeared, Hiruzen's smile faded. Under his breath, he murmured, Go on. In the night, trees stirred without wind. A few silhouettes slipped away and vanished. Kushina, thank you for coming so late to check on this old woman. Don't say that, Grandma Mito. You're my only family in this world. Of course I should look after you. And I don't have to go on missions like other shinobi. It's not tiring. Under the warm lamplight, Uzumaki Maito leaned against the headboard. The youthful radiance she once had was gone, replaced by silver hair and wrinkled skin. Watching Kushina move about the room, Maito's eyes flashed with tenderness. Since Tsunade had left the village, this vast estate had been home to just the two of them. Such is the way of the world. While Maito drifted in thought, Kushina finished tidying up. With the trash in hand, she said brightly, "Grandma Maito, get some rest. I'm heading out." As the door shut, Maito shook her head, helpless and fond. Such a good, sensible child, but her days ahead would not be peaceful. Even she, as a Jinchuriki, had ended up alone. The road ahead for Kushina would be harder still. She sighed, thinking of how proud the Senju had once been. How did things change so much in just a few years? After leaving Maito's room, Kushina dumped the trash. Walking through the Senju compound, she felt hollow inside. She'd thought and thought these past days and had finally decided to accept her fate to become the Ninetales Jinchuriki. She truly wanted the life of an ordinary, free person. But ever since she'd come to the village, the third Hokage had cared for her, indulged her whims, and looked after her daily life, like a kindly grandfather guiding and helping her. She couldn't be too selfish. If only to repay that kindness, she would stay in the village, and like Minato said, maybe there would be other ways to grant her some measure of freedom. Right. I should find Yuzuru and tell him my decision when I have time, she thought. Even so, choosing to remain the Ninetales Jinchuriki didn't mean she thought Yuzuru's view was wrong. As he'd said himself, the Uchiha were simply that way by nature. She hoped Yuzuru wouldn't be angry with her. Lost in thought, she didn't notice three shadows closing in. "Who are you?" Kushina cried out, flinging a handful of shuriken. She began to weave signs to cast a jutsu and create a chance to break away. But the enemy moved faster. All three attacked at once. Before she could mount an effective defense, a cloth pressed over her nose, sleep crashed over her. Late at night, at the village gate, Inabai and Yakumi trailed silently behind their team leader, Uchiha N. Glancing around, Inabai muttered, "Night duty rotates monthly, right? It's almost been 2 months. Why are we still on nights?" For a ninja, having reversed day and night cycles was a minor issue. The most crucial problem was that it was inconvenient for training. If this continues, when will they be able to become as strong as squad leader Yuzuru? "Think Captain Yuzuru swapped shifts with Captain Lihuo," Yakumi whispered. "Huh, why? No idea. Maybe to stay on his future father-in-law's good side." "Hiss, that makes sense." Inabai, Yakumi, enough whispering. "Focus," Uchiha N called ahead. "Yes, sir," they answered quickly. None of them noticed the three dark figures streaking past in the night not far away. Finally, they appeared. In the darkness, Yuzuru opened his eyes, a faint smile curving his lips. By moonlight, he clearly saw 3 men carrying Kushina at speed toward the village outskirts. Without hesitation, he took up his long blade and gave chase. In the original course of events, around a certain summer-autumn turn, Kushina had been kidnapped by shinobi from the Cloud Village, so these past days he'd used night duty as a pretext to keep watch near her. At last, the moment had come. He didn't rush to rescue her, though he shadowed the group instead. Back then, the incident had been riddled with inconsistencies, the details too flimsy to hold up. Afterward, if he laid those doubts out for Kushina, he was sure she would become completely disillusioned with the village leadership. Chapter 13, Moonlit, embraced the moon hung high, casting a dim, silvery glow. Several figures swiftly moved through the dense forest. Not far outside the village, Yuzuru spotted strands of red hair scattered on the ground. He picked up a few and tucked them into his robe, then glanced at the messy footprints and gave a thin smile. Even a fresh genin knew how to mask intent to foil pursuers. But the shinobi who had snatched the future Ninetales Jinchuriki from the village hadn't bothered to hide their trail at all. Clumsy acting, Yuzuru didn't pocket all the loose hair. He gathered what remained into a more obvious clump, making it even easier to see. For the plan to be airtight, Minato had to track Kushina here just like in the original course. He shadowed them. By the time the night wore thin, they were dozens of miles from the village. That was far enough. Yuzuru stopped suppressing his presence and surged forward. Moments after he revealed himself, 3 masked shinobi barred his way. "Stop right there. No passage beyond this point." The leader stared coldly at Yuzuru, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Yuzuru Uchiha, why are you here? Before Yuzuru could reply, he snapped. It's a crime to leave the village at night without the Hokage's written order. Come with us. I don't have such an order, Yuzuru said. Then you're a rogue, the man said flatly. Since we found you, you're coming along. Yuzuru's mouth curved. What makes you think you found me? As his voice fell, his originally pitch-black eyes had already changed into scarlet Mangekyo Sharingan. The captain stiffened, then barked. Don't look at his eyes. He didn't know why Yuzuru's eyes weren't the usual Tamo, but it didn't change the correct move. Too late. As Yuzuru spoke, the captain saw his two subordinates drive their blades into each other's chests. Damn genjutsu. When? He sprang back, one hand diving into his robe for a signal flare. Yuzuru was already in front of him. The captain had to abandon the flare and slash instead. But the next second, his eyes widened suddenly. Yuzuru in front of him was like a phantom. His attack passed directly through the other's body. The Anbu ninja was horrified, desperately swinging the long sword in his hand, continually slashing at Yuzuru's approaching body. Swinging at ghosts are we. Yuzuru glided up, caught the man's throat in one hand. It's a solid body. How is that possible? The captain's mind reeled. His blade had gone through him like smoke moments ago. Yuzuru didn't answer. His fingers tightened. It's late. Vanish quietly. A crisp crack. The man's neck broke. Too easy. Satisfied, Yuzuru nodded. Without intel, this power was absurdly effective. Anbu were elite. A squad leader would at least be special Jonin. Yet even with that lineup, they couldn't get off a single flare. No wonder the stronger an Uchiha becomes, the more extreme they get. With power like this, even knowing the story, I can feel it tug. He steadied himself, then moved the three bodies into the Kamui space. To stand tall in the shinobi world, he'd need an eternal evolution sooner or later. No matter how strong dual Kamui was, Dojutsu power could run dry. For now, the priority was still the clan's rise. No slip-ups, he vanished again. Thud, Kushina's legs buckled. She pitched forward onto the ground. A tall shinobi behind her kicked her in the side. Don't play dead, get up quickly. If your chakra wasn't special, useful, I'd cut you down right now. He yanked the rope binding her wrists and hoisted her up. As the three hulking escorts kept close, Kushina palmed another pinch of broken hair and let it fall. Please, find it. Just then the trio stopped short. Up on a branch, framed by moonlight, stood a long-haired boy. His dark eyes met hers. Don't be afraid, I'm here. At that face and the faint smile on it, Kushina's eyes stung. Yuzuru, they were the same age, yet the moment she saw him, a strange sense of safety washed over her. The long, taut nerves slackened at once. Kill the brat. The three ninja wearing Kumagakure headbands immediately rushed towards Yuzuru. Yuzuru drew his long blade, and the three Tamo Sharingan spun scarlet in the night. Fire release, great fireball technique. Earth release, earth flow wall. A fireball several meters wide hammered a massive earth wall. The three Cloud Ninja ducked behind it, waiting for the dust to settle. A strangled cry snapped the quiet. The other two looked over. Their comrade clutched the back of his neck, eyes bulging as blood jetted between his fingers. He masked the Shuriken's flight with the clash of fire and earth. But from that angle, how? They'd been behind the wall. How had a blade slipped past the dead zone to their rear? End it fast. Down one man in an instant, the remaining two surged at Yuzuru. Won't help. Yuzuru didn't yield. He accelerated straight in. They weren't particularly strong. Even without the Mangekyo, he had them measured. He moved like a dancing butterfly, slipping through their paired assaults with elegant ease. With the three Tamo feeding his perception, their moves opened to him like a book. Each of his counters painted the air with a mist of red. He had no intention of leaving a survivor. If this was indeed a scheme of the Hokage faction, these three would know nothing useful. If it wasn't, they still couldn't be allowed to walk away. He needed this incident to shatter Kushina's faith in the village leadership. Moments later, Yuzuru flicked blood from his blade and sheathed it, then stepped to her side. Kushina, are you hurt? I'm fine. Thank you for saving me, Yuzuru. She drew a steadying breath, awe softening her voice. You were amazing. You took them down so easily. The fight had been dazzling. Those three who'd made her feel despair had crumpled before him as if they were nothing. They were the same age. When did he become this strong? I told you I'd become strong, Yuzuru said lightly. If even this caliber of opponent could pose an obstacle to me, then I'd be nothing special. And I will absolutely not stop here. His quiet confidence left her dazed. Her mind replayed what he'd said to her that day. Why is my heart beating so fast? While she lingered, Yuzuru cut her bonds. Can you walk? Yes, I can. She took 2 steps and stumbled. He caught her arm before she hit the ground. Flushing, she ducked her head. I'm just a little drained. I'm okay, Yuzuru sighed. Stubborn girl, but you won't make it back before dawn like this. He slipped an arm under her knees and lifted her. Ah, Yuzuru, you. Sh. When she fell silent, he added, Easy, I'll take you home. She bit her lip, then quietly rested her head against his chest. A blond boy dropped into view just then, hair like a sunburst. Seeing Kushina in Yuzuru's arms, Namikaze Minato blinked. Am I late? No, you're right on time, Yuzuru said, lips quirking. I'll take Kushina back. Minato, handle the 3 cloud bodies. Before Minato could reply, Yuzuru was already gone with Kushina in his arms, swallowed by the moonlit trees. Chapter 14 Hiruzen, you messed up. Konoha village, under the power of Kamui, Yuzuru Uchiha quietly returned to the village, carrying the unconscious Kushina Uzumaki in his arms. Arriving at the Senju compound, Yuzuru gently set Kushina down. Kushina, wake up. Kushina slowly opened her eyes. She blinked in confusion, looking around before a blush crept across her cheeks. Holding the corner of her clothes nervously, she murmured, Yuzuru, thank you for rescuing me. If not for you, seeing her still shaken, Yuzuru reached out and patted her head with a gentle smile. I'm used to things like this. When you first came to Konoha, I got into more than a few fights for your sake. This time is different, Kushina said loudly. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, she knew how unique her body was. If she had truly been taken by the ninja from the hidden cloud, what awaited her would have been endless darkness. Over the years, she had heard many tragic stories of her scattered clansmen. After calming herself, she asked curiously, Yuzuru, how did you know I'd been kidnapped? At her words, Yuzuru pulled a strand of bright red hair from his pocket. I found this while I was on patrol. There's only one person in all of Konoha with such beautiful hair. Kushina froze, her heartbeat suddenly quickening. She sneaked a glance at him and pouted, beautiful. I don't believe that. Everyone says my hair is strange. I don't think so. Under her astonished gaze, Yuzuru said seriously, I think it's beautiful. Kushina's heart felt like it was about to leap out of her chest. Is this a confession? No, maybe he's just saying what he thinks. Haha, I can't get ahead of myself. But still, should I say something back? What about Mikoto though? Speaking of which, does Yuzuru prefer boys or girls? T/N, is this how you think of someone who just saved you? Seeing Kushina's flustered expression, Yuzuru tactfully changed the subject. Kushina, today's incident was strange. You must be extra careful from now on. Strange, Kushina blinked. What do you mean? Yuzuru shook his head, frowning. You should get some good rest first. I need to think this over carefully. Wait for me at the dessert shop this afternoon. Kushina nodded obediently. Okay, I got it. Watching her leave, Yuzuru's lips curved into a faint smile. HMPH, Hiruzen Sarutobi, it's my turn to make a move now. Hokage building. Inside the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat alone, puffing clouds of smoke into the air. Just as dawn broke, a knock sounded at the door. Hiruzen straightened. Come in. The door opened, and Minato Namikaze stepped inside. Hiruzen's brow twitched slightly, but he smiled kindly. Ah, Minato, here so early, what brings you? Minato bowed respectfully. Lord Hokage, last night Kushina was kidnapped by Cloud Ninja. I've already handed over the 3 Cloud corpses to the Anbu downstairs. Hiruzen froze. The matter's already resolved. Then why haven't the Anbu I sent returned to report? A bad premonition rose in his heart, though he kept his tone calm. Minato, was it you who saved Kushina? Is she unharmed? Minato shook his head. No, it was Yuzuru Uchiha. Hiruzen quickly searched his memory. Yuzuru Uchiha, seeing Hiruzen's puzzled look, Minato explained. When I found Kushina, she had already been rescued by Yuzuru. He left carrying her when I arrived. I stayed behind to deal with the Cloud Ninja bodies. The image of Yuzuru carrying Kushina flashed in Minato's mind, making his chest tighten slightly. If only he had arrived a little sooner. As Minato's thoughts wandered, Hiruzen's expression darkened. He hadn't expected his carefully arranged hero saves the maiden plan to fall apart. ruined by a Uchiha, no less. Yuzuru Uchiha, how had he even realized Kushina was missing? Was it a coincidence? Or had he noticed something? Why had an Uchiha been allowed to leave the village without his knowledge? What was the barrier core doing? And why hadn't the Anbu assigned to Kushina returned, yet too many things had gone wrong? Hiruzen felt irritation twist in his chest. He hated this feeling when events slipped out of his control. Lord Hawkage, Minato's cautious voice brought him back. Hiruzen exhaled a cloud of smoke. I understand. You can go now, Minato. Yes. Once Minato had left, another figure stepped from the shadows. Danzo, you heard everything, Hiruzen said coldly, glaring at Shimura Danzo. Did you have anything to do with this? Danzo tilted his head back with a snort. Hiruzen, you know me. If it were my doing, the one rescuing Kushina would never have been a Uchiha. Hiruzen nodded silently. As troublesome as his old teammate was, this wasn't his style. Seeing Hiruzen's furrowed brow, Danzo couldn't resist a smirk. Hiruzen, I heard Kushina and Yuzuru are quite close. If the future Nine-Tails Jinchuriki were to fall for an Uchiha, that would be amusing, wouldn't it, Danzo? Hiruzen snapped, waving irritably. I'm not in the mood, get out. A surge of killing intent burst from him, forcing Danzo 2 steps back. Fine, fine, no need to be so angry. You're the one who messed this up, yet you're venting on me. You'd love to guide the Jinchuriki, you said, bah, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Bang, before the cup on the desk hit the floor, Danzo had already slammed the door shut behind him. Clutching his chest, Hiruzen felt dizzy. It took him a long time to calm down. Seems I'll have to find a chance to meet this new Uchiha prodigy myself. Tsukumi Confectionery, Konoha's largest and most popular dessert shop. Even in the afternoon, it was packed with people. Most of them couples laughing and chatting, filling the air with the sweet, cloying scent of love. Standing at the entrance, Kushina took out a small mirror and checked her reflection, brushing a few wind-blown strands of red hair behind her ear before stepping inside. In one glance, she spotted Yuzuru sitting quietly by the window. Chapter 15 Deception Yuzuru. Kushina Uzumaki approached Yuzuru Uchiha's table and called out softly. Yuzuru glanced at her in mild surprise. Why are you talking so quietly? Did you leave your vocal cords at home? You left your vocal cords at home. Kushina huffed, sitting down hard across from him with her arms crossed, glaring out the window. This guy has no taste at all. Didn't he notice how much effort I put into dressing up today? Puzzled by her attitude, Yuzuru scratched his head and then pushed a small cake toward her. I ordered this for you. Seeing that, a smile tugged at Kushina's lips. Where's the little spoon? Yuzuru looked up, confused. Kushina, what's gotten into you today? You used to just grab it and bite right in. You. Kushina's hair bristled as if blown by an invisible wind. Her eyes, flaring like sparks, were about to burst forth. Finally, she gave up pretending. They were close enough that acting demure was pointless anyway. Yuzuru, what did you mean by what you said last night? Yuzuru glanced around and replied evenly, let's talk at my place. You can check on the vegetables you planted, too. Kushina's curiosity deepened. She gulped down the small cake in a few bites and stood up. Then let's go. Watching her fiery energy, Yuzuru sighed and picked up a napkin to wipe the crumbs from the corner of her mouth. Kushina's face instantly turned bright red. Yuzuru, us being like this. Isn't that a bit much? What's wrong? And nothing. It's getting late. Let's hurry up and go. They arrived together at the Uchiha compound and stepped into Yuzuru's room. Watching him quietly set up a barrier, Kushina frowned. What's with all this mystery, Yuzuru? What are you trying to say? Yuzuru didn't answer right away. He kept his focus until the barrier was complete, then sat down across from her. Even if Hiruzen Sarutobi and Shimura Danzo couldn't yet reach directly into Uchiha affairs, caution never hurt. Kushina, about your kidnapping last night, what do you think really happened? Kushina thought for a moment before replying. Those cloud ninjas said my chakra was special, valuable to their village. That's why they kidnapped me. Yuzuru shook his head. Kushina blinked. What's wrong? His expression hardened. Kushina, I'll share my analysis with you. But be prepared, it won't be easy to hear. Seeing how serious he was, Kushina grew tense. Yuzuru was a squad leader in the police force, skilled at dissecting intelligence. Had he discovered something, she straightened in her seat. Go ahead, Yuzuru. Yuzuru spoke directly. I suspect your kidnapping last night wasn't the work of the cloud alone. It's tied to Konoha's upper ranks. Even though she'd braced herself, Kushina still froze, her mouth open in shock. Yuzuru, I don't understand. What do you mean? She was the future Ninetales Jinchuriki. The village leaders should have been doing everything to protect her. How could they possibly let the cloud abduct her? Kushina, think about it. You're always under constant Anbu surveillance and protection, 24 hours a day, right? Kushina nodded. Yes. Then why, after you were taken for so long, did the Anbu not react at all? Kushina faltered. She had never thought about that. Maybe the cloud ninja struck while the Anbu were switching shifts, but before she could finish, she realized how absurd that sounded. Even if it happened during a shift change, the incoming Anbu would have noticed she was missing and immediately alerted the Hokage. Those cloud ninja hadn't moved particularly fast. There was no way they could have gotten far without being discovered. Yuzuru, maybe the Anbu on duty were killed by those 3 cloud ninja. Yuzuru shook his head. You saw their skills yourself. They weren't that strong. Even if the Anbu weren't their equals, do you really think none of them had time to send a distress signal? Even if, for argument's sake, all 3 were elite Jonin who took the Anbu out instantly, could they really have kidnapped Konoha's future Jinchuriki and vanished without anyone noticing? No Anbu, no Jonin. No one from the barrier corps detected a thing. Kushina fell silent again. She had never questioned it before, but now that Yuzuru laid it out, the situation seemed wrong on every level. Konoha was the strongest village in the shinobi world, elite in every field: ninja strength, barrier detection, intelligence systems. To abduct a heavily protected future Jinchuriki right from within Konoha's walls without a sound. Unthinkable. And sending 3 elite Jonin into the heart of Konoha, risking their lives for a kidnapping with such low odds of success. The cost and risk didn't match the supposed reward. Still, wasn't there at least a small chance? Maybe the cloud really were that reckless. Maybe those ninja were experts in stealth and escape. Maybe they possessed some secret jutsu that let them bypass Konoha's barriers undetected. Yes, maybe it was too soon to draw conclusions. She needed more proof. Desperate to deny the implications, Kushina searched her heart for excuses. After a long pause, her voice came out hoarse. Yuzuru, keep going, he nodded. Those cloud ninja didn't split up to confuse any pursuers. They didn't even try to erase their trail. And they traveled on foot, dragging you along instead of fleeing quickly. Everything points to one thing: they had no intention of hiding. Unless they were complete rookies. But if they were rookies, they couldn't have possibly kidnapped you from Konoha so quietly. Kushina's face paled. Yuzuru continued relentlessly. And think about it from the cloud's perspective. Sending 3 Jonin means they took this mission seriously. So why was there no extraction team waiting after the job was done? Even the cloud wouldn't throw away 3 elite lives like that. I've gone over it again and again. There's only one explanation that makes sense. The so-called cloud kidnapping was a performance, staged by Konoha's own upper ranks. Kushina bit her lip, struggling to hold herself together. If that's true, what was their goal? Kushina, do you remember? That night, Minato also showed up. Instead of answering directly, Yuzuru asked, I can't figure out, how did Minato know you'd been kidnapped? I only found out because I was on night patrol and happened to witness it. Why was Minato out in the middle of the night, wandering around the village? Kushina hesitated. Minato said Lord Third sent him to deliver a letter to me. As soon as she said it, confusion flooded her heart. That letter, she'd written it days ago. Why had the third Hokage chosen that very night of all times to send a reply? And why wasn't it delivered by Anbu, but by her close friend Minato Namikaze? She hadn't thought much of it before. But after Yuzuru's reasoning, a cold unease crept into her chest. Could all this really be coincidence? After giving her a moment to process, Yuzuru spoke firmly. Believe it or not, I'm certain of my conclusion. Kushina, they're toying with your life. Chapter 16. Yuzuru, you scumbag, toying with my life. Kushina Uzumaki stood frozen, staring blankly after hearing Yuzuru Uchiha's final words. Something seemed to click in her mind, but everything still felt like a tangled blur. Seeing her dazed expression, Yuzuru quietly rose and brewed her a cup of hot tea. When the rising steam had finally faded, Kushina lifted her empty eyes toward him. Yuzuru, what? What you said. What does it mean? Seeing Kushina Uzumaki's pitiful appearance, a sense of pity rose in his heart. For a girl whose lifelong dream was to become Hokage and earn the village's recognition, the cruelty of the truth was almost unbearable. But Yuzuru couldn't afford to be soft-hearted now. After a short silence, he spoke again. The third Hokage always preaches about bonds. Human emotion is complex. We care deeply for those close to us. Parents would die for their children. Lovers would give their lives for one another. Comrades would risk everything for their friends. You mentioned before that you wrote to the third Hokage, saying you didn't want to become the Jinchuriki, right? I believe that's exactly why Hiruzen Sarutobi orchestrated this kidnapping. As Kushina's eyes dimmed, Yuzuru gave his final verdict. All his kind concern, all his little manipulations, like having Minato play the hero to rescue you. It was all to make you, the future Ninetales Jinchuriki, stay in Konoha willingly and sacrifice yourself for the village. Like the final straw crushing a camel's back, Kushina closed her eyes in despair. So, the life I thought was real was nothing more than a carefully crafted lie. Why? I already decided to accept it, to become the Ninetales Jinchuriki. Why did he still have to do this? Yuzuru sighed. Kushina, if the third hadn't been so impatient, if he'd just waited for you to tell him yourself, we might never have seen his true nature. Here, drink some tea. She took the cup and sipped slowly before asking nervously. Yuzuru, if this was all the third's plan, then you, by ruining it, you're in danger. I dragged you into this, didn't I? Yuzuru shook his head. Don't say that. Even if I had to choose again, I wouldn't stand by and do nothing. What's more, Hiruzen Sarutobi and the others have always been very hostile towards us, Uchiha Clan. Even without this incident, my image in their eyes wouldn't have improved. Hostile. Kushina gave Yuzuru a surprised look. Yuzuru, isn't the Uchiha clan that founded the village a highly respected and powerful clan? You're too naive, Kushina, Yuzuru said with a faint snort. Konoha's darkness runs deeper than you can imagine. Just watch. If I'm right, Hiruzen Sarutobi will make his move very soon. Looking at the confident Yuzuru, Kushina couldn't help but feel emotional. Yuzuru, you've really changed so much. If it weren't for you, I might have been kept in the dark for my whole life. Yuzuru smiled. That's because these eyes of mine can see through everything. With memories of his past life, he understood nearly all the hidden truths of the shinobi world. To him, Konoha's history was like an open book. Schemes that once seemed unsolvable were transparent from his god's eye view. Kushina couldn't help but smile faintly, her spirit lifted by his calm certainty. So, Yuzuru, she asked, what should I do now? After the kidnapping incident, she no longer trusted Hiruzen at all. The fragile sense of belonging she'd built toward Konoha had completely vanished. But even knowing the truth, she had no power to resist. How was she supposed to go on from here? Kushina, Yuzuru said slowly, if one day I decide to leave Konoha, would you come with me? Her heart skipped wildly. His serious gaze sent warmth rushing through her, coloring her cheeks from her neck to her ears. This is definitely a confession, right? When did Yuzuru start feeling this way about me? Kushina, his voice brought her back to herself. She looked down shyly. Yuzuru, I would, of course. But what about Mikoto? Mikoto? Yuzuru blinked. She'd come too, of course. What? Kushina shot to her feet, staring at him in disbelief. Yuzuru, you scumbag. With that, she turned and bolted out of the room. Yuzuru stood there, utterly baffled. What? We were talking about serious things. How did I suddenly become a scumbag? Yuzuru. Not long after Kushina's dramatic exit, Fugaku Uchiha's voice came from outside. Yuzuru got up and opened the door. Fugaku's face was dark. What is it? Yuzuru. It's just as you predicted. The third Hokage rejected our proposal. Moments ago, Hiruzen Sarutobi had formally turned down their request to recruit ninja from other clans or civilians into the police force, clearly stating that, except during wartime, the Uchiha were only to handle the village's internal security. That decision had completely destroyed what little trust Fugaku and Teru still had in the village leadership. If the upper ranks truly had nothing to hide, wouldn't they welcome such cooperation? Yuzuru wasn't surprised. Fugaku, I expected that. From now on, gather information on both the conservative and radical factions within the clan. Fugaku frowned. Yuzuru, do you already have a plan? Yuzuru nodded. You don't need the details yet. Just do as I said. Understood. Fugaku hesitated, then added. By the way, the third Hokage sent Anbu to summon you. He wants to see you in his office. Yuzuru, should I go with you? Knowing what Hiruzen and the council were really like now, Fugaku couldn't help worrying for him. Yuzuru wasn't just the clan's rising genius. He was their hope for the future. Yuzuru patted his shoulder. Don't worry, I'll handle it. He wasn't surprised that Hiruzen wanted to see him. After all, he had sabotaged the man's scheme. Of course the Hokage would take action, but whatever Hiruzen tried, Yuzuru wouldn't flinch. With twin Kamui at his command, there was nothing to fear. Watching Yuzuru's departing figure, Fugaku suddenly realized something. Wait a second, how did I end up feeling like this kid's subordinate? Chapter 17 Conversation Hokage Building, Hokage's office. Yuzuru Uchiha glanced around the spacious, well-lit room with curiosity. Since arriving in this world, this was his first time here. After a moment's look, the ever-pragmatic Yuzuru turned toward Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was still buried in paperwork. Third Hokage, what do you need me for? Third Hokage, hey. What an insolent brat, Hiruzen cursed silently. Usually, anyone summoned to his office would stand quietly and wait until he finished his work. But this boy looked like he was about to march over and slam his hand on the desk, as expected of an Uchiha, arrogant to the core. Despite his annoyance, Hiruzen forced a kindly smile. Ah, Yuzuru, I must be getting old. My hearing isn't what it used to be. Third Hokage, hearing loss is a condition. You should get that checked out. Cough, cough. Hiruzen nearly choked on his water. Setting the cup down, he reached for his pipe. Before he could light it, Yuzuru frowned. Third Hokage, I don't like the smell of smoke. You little bastard. Hiruzen swore he almost summoned Monkey King, Enma on the spot, just to teach this brat why people called him the god of shinobi. But for the sake of his image, he lowered the pipe and forced another strained smile. Yuzuru, I heard you rescued Kushina from the Cloud Ninja. It's thanks to you things didn't end in disaster. Is that so? Kushina's that important? Hiruzen nodded gravely. There's something you deserve to know. Kushina is the village's next candidate for the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Only her unique constitution can fully suppress the Nine-Tails. Losing her would have been catastrophic. I see. Yuzuru suddenly smiled, a bright, almost dazzling smile that made the whole office feel lighter. He didn't know why Hiruzen was revealing this now, but that didn't stop him from taking advantage of the situation. Before Hiruzen could continue, Yuzuru said, Third Hokage, since I've done such a great service for the village, shouldn't I get a reward? I'll endure it. Hiruzen inhaled deeply, calming himself. You've earned it, Yuzuru. A reward is only right. I heard the Scroll of Seals contains a lot of powerful forbidden techniques. How about you give me that? Hiruzen froze, glaring at him. This brat was definitely doing this on purpose, the Scroll of Seals. Why not just ask to be Hokage while you're at it? There was no way he could hand that to an Uchiha. But since he just praised the boy, rejecting him outright would look bad. After a quick thought, his eyes brightened. Yuzuru, many of the jutsu in the Scroll of Seals are incomplete. Practicing them recklessly could cost a ninja his life, but there is one forbidden technique that might suit you. What technique? The multiple shadow clone jutsu. Hiruzen smiled warmly. Compared to the other jutsu in the scroll, this one wasn't overly dangerous, unless misused, in which case it would drain one's chakra and kill them outright. A perfect reward for a mouthy Uchiha brat. I'll have it copied for you later, Hiruzen said smoothly. For now, let's discuss the Cloud kidnapping incident. Without giving Yuzuru a chance to decline, Hiruzen pressed on, his gaze sharpening. According to my investigation, you weren't on night duty that day. It should have been Lihuo Uchiha, correct? We switched, Yuzuru said with a shrug. Captain Lihuo wasn't feeling well. I see. Hiruzen paused briefly before continuing. Then how did you leave Konoha without the barrier core detecting anything? He had already checked. The barrier had been fully functional that night. Not even a fly could leave the village unnoticed. So how did Yuzuru manage to get out unseen? Yuzuru's tone was flat. Third Hokage, maybe you should ask the barrier core that question. I just followed the Cloud Ninja's trail, that's all. During the chase, did you encounter any Anbu? No. Subscribe for more amazing novel audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, and share infinite novel audio. Are you sure? Feeling the rising pressure in Hiruzen's chakra, Yuzuru's voice chilled. Third Hokage, Kushina's already been rescued and the Cloud Ninja corpses have been retrieved. What exactly are you trying to find out? Is there something you're not telling me? How sharp? Hiruzen hadn't expected him to catch on so quickly. If he pressed further, he might only arouse more suspicion. Or perhaps Yuzuru already knew something. Switched shifts on purpose, slipped past the barrier unnoticed, rescued Kushina first and now the missing Anbu. There was no proof, but Hiruzen's instincts screamed caution. After years of reading people, his gut told him one thing: Yuzuru Uchiha was dangerous and must be watched. After a moment's thought, Hiruzen dropped the subject. Yuzuru, since you now know about Kushina, there's something else you need to understand. The Sharingan can influence the tailed beasts. For the sake of stability, you and all Uchiha are forbidden from interacting with Kushina from now on. This isn't a punishment, it's for the village's safety. Yuzuru nearly burst out laughing, as expected. As expected. No, I can't laugh yet, keep it together. This was perfect. Hiruzen's precaution would only fuel the rift between Kushina and the Uchiha clan. When the news spread, resentment would erupt on both sides, and when the time came for him to leave Konoha, he'd have the full support of his clan and Kushina alike. Yuzuru, you can go now. I'll have the multiple shadow clone scroll delivered to you later. Once Yuzuru left, Hiruzen tapped his desk. A silver-haired man with deep, steady eyes appeared before him. Sakumo, from today, I want you to monitor every move the Uchiha make through the Anbu, especially Yuzuru Uchiha. If he shows even the slightest sign of rebellion, you have my permission to eliminate him immediately. Today's conversation had made it clear, Yuzuru wasn't someone Hiruzen could control, and those with talent beyond control were threats. Lord Hokage, said Sakumo Hatache, frowning slightly. Wouldn't that risk provoking the Uchiha clan? Just follow orders. Yes. After Sakumo left, Hiruzen clasped his hands behind his back and gazed out the window with a cold smile. The village's power was firmly in his grasp. Even if the Uchiha wanted to rebel, what could they really do? At most, they'll just complain a little, right? Nothing more. Chapter 18 Yuzuru, you have no talent for that. Why won't you let me in? I need to see Lord Hokage, not today. Then when? I don't know. I'll relay your request, but until Lord Hokage summons you, please wait quietly. The emotionless tone of the Anbu before her made Kushina Uzumaki's fists clench tightly. After glaring fiercely at the Hokage building one last time, she turned and stormed off. As she walked through Konoha's streets, fury burned in her chest. Yuzuru had been right. Hiruzen Sarutobi really had taken action. From now on, she wouldn't be able to see Mikoto or Yuzuru again. Damn it, why can't I even have a bit of freedom? What will of fire? What bonds? It's all bullshit. Fuming, Kushina returned to the Senju compound. The last remnants of her faith in the village had shattered. All she wanted now was for Yuzuru's plan to succeed. She couldn't stand living another moment in this gilded cage. Kushina, you don't seem to be in a good mood. Sunbathing in the courtyard, Mito Uzumaki reached out and gently pulled Kushina to sit beside her. What happened, my child? Grandma Mito. Seeing her hesitation, Mito rose slowly and led her into the room. Kushina, speak freely. No one will overhear us here. Kushina knelt down beside her. If there was still anyone in Konoha she could trust, it was the woman who had raised her. Grandma Mito, if one day I left Konoha, would you blame me? Mito froze. Kushina, why would you ask that? It's nothing, just thinking out loud. Mito smiled softly and brushed a hand over Kushina's red hair. On the shelf by my bed, there's a scroll. Bring it to me. Oh, Kushina handed it over and Mito placed the scroll in her hands. This contains every sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan. From today on, it's yours. Kushina's eyes widened in disbelief. Grandma Mito, why are you giving me something so important? Mito chuckled. I was going to leave it to you after I passed away, but I'm afraid one morning I'll wake up and you'll already be gone. Better to give it now. Grandma Mito, you won't blame me. Kushina whispered. Silly child, Mito said with a gentle shake of her head. Why would I blame you? You've made your choice and I won't stop you. I know better than anyone how hard it is to be a Jinchuriki. Of course, the path you've chosen won't be easy either. No matter where you go, the village won't give up on you easily. I'll be careful, Kushina said, then frowned slightly. Grandma Mito, if your life here has been so difficult, why endure it for so long? With your strength and status, even the Hokage couldn't control you, Mito sighed. Hashirama has been gone many years, but as his wife, I wanted to carry on his ideals. For the sake of the village, I couldn't act on my own desires. After all these years, I think I've lived up to him. She paused, her expression distant. But I failed the people of Uchiha. Kushina, I'm sorry for saying this only now. I hope you won't resent me. If Kushina hadn't decided to leave, Mito might have carried those words to her grave. Looking at the frail old woman, Kushina's eyes stung. I don't blame you, Grandma Mito. That's good. Mito smiled and took her hand. Even someone with Mito's once great vitality now had hands thin and wrinkled with age. Rubbing Kushina's soft, pale fingers, she asked curiously, Kushina, can you tell me what made you decide this? Kushina rested her cheek on her palm, the image of that moonlit night rising in her mind. Her lips curved into a tender smile. Because I met my hero. Fire style, great fireball jutsu, trivial trick. Fugaku Uchiha snorted coldly, swinging his blade and splitting the massive fireball cleanly in half. Fire style, Phoenix Sage fire technique. Dozens of flame-coated shurikens scattered through the air like a storm of fiery blossoms, ricocheting and attacking Fugaku from every angle. Shadow clone jutsu. Fugaku formed seals swiftly, his long blade knocking away the incoming shuriken, while his clone handled those attacking from the blind spots behind him. Clang. Steel clashed and split apart again in a shower of sparks. Both Yuzuru Uchiha and Fugaku had their 3-tamo Sharingan spinning furiously. Their figures flickered across the training ground, movements so fast they blurred into afterimages. Each strike targeted a vital point, and each was narrowly evaded by the other. Yuzuru, this time I'll beat you. Fugaku declared confidently. They had agreed not to use any Dejutsu powers, and with pure Taijutsu and Kenjutsu alone, he believed he had a chance. Yuzuru didn't reply. He simply answered with sharper, faster strikes. After a fierce exchange, Fugaku suddenly froze. The cold edge of Yuzuru's blade was resting against his throat. He had lost. Even without using their eye techniques, he still wasn't Yuzuru's match. Yuzuru sheathed his sword slowly. I don't know what you were hoping for, but this is reality. Even if he refrained from using his Dejutsu powers, the visual acuity of his Mangekyo Sharingan far surpassed any normal 3-tamo. And with the enhancements from the system's rewards, he had no weaknesses at all. To defeat someone with no weaknesses, one needed overwhelming strength, and Fugaku simply didn't have it. Watching Yuzuru's calm, almost casual expression, Fugaku sighed. I lost. You seem disappointed. What do you think? He was a recognized prodigy himself, and older than Yuzuru by several years. Yet he had been utterly surpassed. Seeing his expression, Yuzuru consoled him. You don't need to feel inferior for losing to me. It's like how a butterfly is destined never to cross the ocean, and a firefly need not compete with the bright moon. Fugaku clenched his fists. Are you mocking me? No, I'm comforting you. Then don't. You have no talent for that. For once, the usually composed Fugaku nearly ground his teeth to dust. Damn it. Why can't someone this infuriating be me still, he thought. At least he'd have something to dream about tonight. Just then, Yakumi Uchiha and Inabai Uchiha burst into the courtyard, faces tense. Lord Yuzuru, Lord Fugaku, our men have clashed with the Anbu. You'd better come take a look. Chapter 19 Firm Fists, Strong Statements a few minutes earlier. At the restaurant Shiwamiya, known throughout Konoha for its exquisite cooking, the little shop was always full despite its modest size. Its reputation, according to rumor, came from its owner, Yuriko Uchiha, who combined the precise observation of the Sharingan with her culinary skill to create dishes of unmatched flavor. Because every plate was personally made by her, the restaurant only opened at night. Now, during dinner hours, every seat in the small dining room was filled. Then, amidst the clatter and chatter, a loud bang shook the room as someone slammed a table. Everyone turned to look. 2 drunk men were shouting, "Boss, boss, boss." Moments later, Yuriko Uchiha emerged from the kitchen wearing a white apron and scarf. What seems to be the problem? Despite just leaving the kitchen, she was spotless. Her hair was tied in a neat bun beneath a white cap. Even in middle age, her refined beauty and graceful figure inevitably drew attention. The two men exchanged lewd glances and grinned. One of them pointed at his empty cup. "Boss, you think this sake's gonna pour itself into my glass?" Yuriko's expression chilled, but she bowed slightly and refilled the cup. "My apologies. The shop is busy. We failed to serve you promptly. Hold it." As she turned to leave, the man leaned back with a smirk. "One cup's not enough for me. How about you sit down and drink with us, huh?" "Yeah, come on, sit next to me," his companion added. Their laughter drew chuckles from a few of the other tables. Yuriko's eyes darkened. She said nothing, but her fingers twitched slightly, ready to move. Before she could act, a calm voice spoke from behind her. "Yuriko, need a hand, Captain Lihuo." Seeing Lihuo Uchiha, Yuriko quickly explained what had happened. Lihuo's eyes narrowed coldly. He gestured to two subordinates. "Take these troublemakers to the police force headquarters." "You dare," one of the drunk men barked. Lihuo's lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. "Try me. Wait." Two masked Anbu suddenly appeared between them. "We'll handle this matter. You can leave." Lihuo frowned. "This is a simple public disturbance. The police force can deal with it perfectly well." One of the Anbu replied flatly, "We don't need to explain ourselves. Just know these two are coming with us." "You." Lihuo's face darkened with fury, but there was nothing he could do. The Anbu were the Hokkage's personal operatives. No one in Konoha dared defy them. As he stood there in silence, the two drunk men smirked triumphantly. "What kind of noble clan are you, huh? The Uchiha, just a bunch of glorified security guards pretending to matter. Think you can order the Anbu around? Keep dreaming." Lihuo's jaw tightened. Those bastards had just trampled the dignity of both the Uchiha and the police force in front of everyone. But if he fought back publicly, he'd bear the consequences alone. Guess even the great Uchiha bow down to the Anbu now. Serves them right, always acting so high and mighty. They're just a bunch of pretentious thugs. About time someone put them in their place. The whispers among the onlookers made Fugaku, Uchiha's chest heave with rage as he arrived on the scene. All their effort to keep the peace in the village. And this was how they were treated. "See, Fugaku." Yuzuru's voice came coolly from behind. "These are the people we're protecting." He stepped through the crowd, the crimson glow of his 3-tamo Sharingan spilling across the room. The noise died instantly. The two Anbu tensed. "Yuzuru Uchiha, what do you think you're doing?" Yuzuru's tone was calm, exercising the authority of the police force. "If you interfere, I'll arrest you too," one of the Anbu scoffed. "Only the Hokkage has the right to judge us." "That's between me and the Hokkage," Yuzuru said, stepping closer. "Now, are you leaving or not?" The oppressive pressure of his gaze made the Anbu hesitate. After a silent exchange, both flickered out of sight. They'd already done their favor for those men. If things escalated further, they'd be the ones punished, and with those crimson eyes glaring at them, they weren't confident they'd win. As their protectors vanished, the two drunken ninjas blanched. "Wait, we can expel." Bang, bang. Before they could finish, Yuzuru's fists slammed into their jaws, sending teeth and blood flying. A heartbeat later, he kicked out twice, each blow shattering a leg. "Take them away." "Yes, sir." Their screams faded as the officers dragged them out. The rest of the diners sat frozen in silence. Yuzuru clapped his hands and smiled faintly. "You see, that's called firm fists and strong statements. Hit the mouth first stops them from begging, then the legs so they can't run. When dealing with scum, this is the proper method." The others couldn't help but laugh quietly. Lihuo clapped Yuzuru hard on the shoulder. "Good work, kid. I knew I wasn't wrong about you." He'd been seconds away from exploding himself. Seeing Yuzuru ignore the Anbu's authority so decisively was deeply satisfying. For once, the brat actually looked pleasing to the eye. Yuzuru grinned. "About Mikoto, I still have patrol duty." Lihuo blurted quickly and turned on his heel. "Guess the old man won't be easy to win over," Yuriko said, hiding a laugh behind her hand. "Sorry, Yuzuru, for dragging you into this." Yuzuru waved it off. "Come on, Aunt Yuriko, you've taken good care of me over the years." "Watch that mouth, brat," Yuriko scolded lightly, smiling. "I've got work to finish. Dinner's on me next time." After she left, Fugaku lowered his voice. "Yuzuru, those drunks were definitely Anbu too. No one else would dare act that brazenly. The Hokkage faction is getting out of control. What do you plan to do? Seeing Fugaku's growing frustration, Yuzuru asked, "How's the list I asked you to prepare?" "Almost done. The radical faction and conservative faction have been completely separated." "Good." Yuzuru's eyes gleamed. "Then tonight, summon all squad leaders of the police force to Naka Shrine. We're holding a secret clan meeting." Chapter 20, A Dark and Windy Night. A dark and windy night, the perfect time for murder and fire. Yuzuru Uchiha gazed up at the moon and slowly put on the spiral mask he had crafted in advance. Its design resembled the one Obito Uchiha would one day wear, except this one had two eye holes. Once he was dressed and armed, his figure vanished from the room without a trace. In an apartment building not far from the Uchiha compound, from the fifth-floor window, a telescope quietly extended into the night air. Inside the room, the Anbu ninja who had just finished his shift simply adjusted the angle of the binoculars so that he could clearly observe the situation inside the Uchiha compound. Yawn tilde, these Uchiha are such a hassle. Why do we waste so many Anbu watching them? Wouldn't it be easier to just round them all up? His partner, kneeling on the floor and carefully polishing a kunai, replied in a low, cold voice. Focus, watch every movement, don't get distracted. Why so serious? He chuckled. Honestly, these Uchiha are like pen dogs now. If Lord Hawkage gave the order, I'd rush in first and kill a few myself. Just thinking about it makes me laugh. Ha ha ha. The observer snorted at his own joke, but no answer came. Hey, he said, turning around, why so quiet? Don't you think that's funny? His words froze in his throat. At some point, a man wearing a spiral mask had appeared in the room. His partner lay on the floor behind him, clutching his neck, lifeless. What's so funny? The masked man asked quietly. What's amusing about mocking the clan that founded Konoha? The smooth, magnetic voice filled the room. The remaining Anbu felt his limbs go weak. The stranger's eyes were unlike any he'd ever seen, shimmering with an unnatural, distorted pattern that radiated pure dread. Just looking into them felt like falling into an abyss. Damn it, how did he get in? Every inch of the surrounding area had been reinforced with powerful barrier seals for surveillance. Not even a fly could slip through unnoticed, yet no one had sensed this man's arrival. No time to think. The Anbu formed hand signs, trying to raise an alarm, but before he could complete the first seal, his vision spun violently. Kamui. That single whisper was the last thing he heard before darkness swallowed him whole. Naka Shrine. In the hidden chamber below, over a dozen members of the Uchiha clan sat in tense silence. Teru Uchiha raised a hand, signaling the group to quiet down. Lihuo Uchiha frowned. Clan head, you summoned us so suddenly. What's going on? Teru nodded gravely. This meeting concerns the very future of the Uchiha clan. I've called everyone here to discuss our path forward. Everyone gasped softly. The future of the Uchiha clan. What could possibly be that serious? Before anyone could ask, Yuzuru Uchiha's figure materialized in the center of the room. Apologies for being late, I had something to handle. It's fine, Teru said with a nod. You may begin. Yuzuru wasted no time. You've all heard by now. The third Hokage has forbidden any of us from approaching the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. His reason, our Sharingan can control tailed beasts. That decision proves one thing. The village leadership has no trust in us whatsoever. The Uchiha are standing at the edge of life and death. We cannot sit and wait for disaster. The room fell into a shocked silence. Though many had felt resentment toward Hiruzen's decree, none had thought of it as life or death. Yashiro Uchiha couldn't hold back. Yuzuru, you're exaggerating. Because of Madara's actions long ago, the Hokage's caution is understandable. Yuzuru's gaze slid toward him. His eyes twisted and deepened into a pair of swirling Mangekyo Sharingan. Gasps erupted. Even Teru and Fugaku rose to their feet in shock. Yuzuru, your eyes. That's right, he said calmly. The Mangekyo Sharingan, the legendary power of our clan. Though the Warring States era wasn't that distant, few had ever seen such eyes in person. It was the power said to have ended an age of chaos, the power once wielded by Uchiha Madara himself, and now Yuzuru possessed it. No wonder your Dojutsu power was stronger than mine. Fugaku muttered in realization. You'd already awakened the Mangekyo. He finally understood why Yuzuru's Sharingan had outclassed his so completely. Lihuo swallowed hard. Yuzuru, when did you awaken it? The moment I saw the Uchiha's future clearly. Yuzuru raised a hand, and the unconscious Anbu he'd captured earlier appeared out of thin air. Under Genjutsu, the man confessed everything, Hiruzen Sarutobai's orders to spy on the Uchiha. Once Yuzuru was done, he slit the man's throat without hesitation. A soft hiss rippled through the room. None of them were strangers to killing, but this was different. He had just executed an Anbu, Hokage's direct agent. That was treason, Yashiro stammered, voice trembling. Yuzuru, you'll get us all killed. Yuzuru turned his eyes to Fugaku, who immediately stepped forward. Yashiro's a hardline conservative. He's always pushed for submission to the Hokage's authority. Yuzuru nodded once. He strode forward and wrapped his hand around Yashiro's throat. Sorry, he said coldly. The Uchiha can no longer afford divided voices. Relics of the old era should fade quietly into the dark. Crack. Yashiro didn't even have time to resist. His neck snapped like a twig. The others froze in horror. First, Yuzuru had revealed the Mangekyo Sharingan. Then he'd killed an Anbu. Now he'd executed a police force squad leader in front of everyone. And the clan head, Teru, and Fugaku stood by his side without objection. There was only one choice left. Submit. After a long, heavy silence, Lihuo finally asked, voice shaking, Yuzuru, what exactly are you planning? Yuzuru dropped Yashiro's corpse to the ground and looked around the chamber. I've had enough of this hollow village. I will carve a new path for the Uchiha. Who stands with me, and who stands against me? Chapter 21. Damn. I've become the conservative one. When Yuzuru Uchiha's words fell, the underground chamber went completely silent. No one dared to speak. Not before the man who wielded the Mangekyo Sharingan and killed without hesitation. Even the proudest Uchiha weren't stupid enough to provoke him now. Seeing their reaction, Yuzuru nodded in satisfaction. If possible, he would have preferred not to use such extreme measures. But for the plan to proceed smoothly, this was the fastest and most effective way. After gathering his thoughts, Yuzuru spoke slowly. Years ago, our Uchiha clan and the Senju clan joined forces to found Konoha. But after all these years, we've been pushed out of the village's core of power, while the Senju have all but vanished. Since the time of Tabarama Senju, suspicion and fear toward us have never stopped. When Hiruzen Sarutobai took power, the Anbu began stepping on us completely, stripping away the pride that once defined our name. The military police force, independent self-governance. It was all nothing more than a carefully designed trap. He repeated before the group the same words he'd once spoken to Teru and Fugaku. As Yuzuru finished, realization dawned across every face in the room. Rage burned in their eyes, the crimson glow of their Sharingan intensifying as Dejutsu power surged. So that was it. The village leaders had never treated them as their own. They had been scheming to suppress them from the start. Damn those bastards. Only now do I see their true faces. Yuzuru, what's the plan? Should we strike now, stage a coup immediately? If we move fast, we can take them by surprise. As their fury boiled over, Yuzuru shook his head. We don't yet have the strength to fight Hiruzen Sarutobai head-on. A revolt now would only lead to the slaughter of the Uchiha. Teru slammed his fist on the table. Better to die fighting than wait to be caged and butchered. If we perish, we'll at least take a chunk of their flesh with us. Right, the Uchiha aren't cowards afraid of death. Yuzuru, with your Mangekyo Sharingan, you could assassinate the Hokage yourself, couldn't you? Seeing their wild, almost feral eyes fixed on him, Yuzuru nearly choked. Damn it. I've somehow become the conservative one. He exhaled and began explaining his plan. Don't worry. I have no intention of waiting around to die. I plan to lead the Uchiha clan out of Konoha. What? Teru, Fugaku, Lihuo, and the others all stared at him in shock. Yuzuru, you can't be serious. Even if some of us could slip past the Anbu's surveillance, what about the elders, the children, the civilians? You'd abandon them. Yuzuru's tone remained calm. You all saw it earlier. My Mangekyo Sharingan has spatial transfer abilities. I have a way to transport every single member of our clan out of the land of fire. The room froze in disbelief. There were thousands of Uchiha in total. Moving them all at once, it sounded utterly impossible. Teru frowned deeply. Even if you could, the chakra and eye strain would be tremendous. Clan records say that once the Mangekyo's Dijutsu power is depleted, blindness follows. No need to worry, I know my limits. With the system's teleportation scroll at his disposal, exhaustion wasn't an issue, he continued. Before we move, pack every clan asset, ninjutsu scrolls, resources, equipment, seal them all up. Don't leave Hiruzen and his lapdogs a single coin. He smirked faintly. I can't wait to see their faces when they wake up and realize the entire Uchiha clan has vanished overnight. At that, dark smiles spread across the others' faces as well, just imagining it was deliciously satisfying. After finalizing the relocation plan, the meeting dispersed quietly. Back home, Yuzuru left a shadow clone behind. His real body activated Kamui and slipped out of Konoha. What? 2 Anbu assigned to monitor the Uchiha have gone missing. Upon hearing Sakumo Hatake's report, Hiruzen Sarutobai's expression hardened. Sakumo, did you find anything? Sakumo shook his head. Nothing except blood traces, no clues left behind. A single name surfaced in Hiruzen's mind, Yuzuru Uchiha. That night, during Kushina Uzumaki's kidnapping, Yuzuru had slipped past the village's barrier without anyone noticing. Could it be him? Hiruzen couldn't be sure, but that didn't matter, he'd already made up his mind. Sakumo. He said darkly, watch Yuzuru Uchiha closely. If the opportunity arises, kill him. Make sure no one ever finds out. There was no hard evidence linking Yuzuru to the killings. If word spread that he'd ordered an assassination, the Uchiha would never forgive it. This had to be handled silently. Understood. Without hesitation, Sakumo's form flickered and vanished. Hiruzen looked down at the file on his desk, Yuzuru's dossier, and drew a large black X across his photograph. With Sakumo's strength, he was certain. The next time Yuzuru was alone, he'd be dead. Late night. Land of Rice Fields, the daimyo's mansion. After his evening bath, the daimyo of the land of Rice Fields strolled lazily into his chamber, servants dismissed. He stretched, silk robes slipping from his rotund body, then froze. Who are you? Guards, and a sass. A flash of red light cut his words short. Under a simple genjutsu, the daimyo's body went limp. Yuzuru Uchiha turned and left the room. The land of Rice Fields, one of the few nations without a shinobi village, would make a perfect temporary refuge for the Uchiha. By now, everything should be in place. I've been away long enough. Time to head back. Setting a space coordinate, Yuzuru willed his chakra to twist. His body blurred and vanished into the void. Chapter 22, Uchiha Abido. It took Yuzuru Uchiha 5 full days to travel back to Konoha from the land of Rice Fields. He hadn't used Kamui for the journey. The distance between the land of Rice Fields and Konoha was simply too great. Using Kamui over such a span would drain too much of his Dijutsu power. There would be many occasions in the future when he'd need his eyes, and until he obtained the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan, Yuzuru had no intention of wasting his strength on meaningless travel. Still, once he neared the village, he used Kamui to transport directly into his own room. After dispelling his shadow clone, Yuzuru immediately went to see Fugaku Uchiha. At the time, Fugaku was busy writing at his desk, surrounded by stacks of documents. Fugaku. Yuzuru tapped the table, pulling him out of his focus. Yuzuru, you're back. Have you settled on a relocation site? Yuzuru nodded. Preliminary decision, land of Rice Fields. Land of Rice Fields, Ichem. Fugaku rubbed his chin. That's actually a fine choice. And the clan head, father's health is failing. He's asked me to handle clan affairs in his stead. Teru Uchiha had suffered severe injuries in his youth. Though Tsunade's treatment had saved his life, the internal damage never truly healed. Even if things followed the original timeline, the old clan head didn't have many years left. Yuzuru didn't dwell on it and asked, how's the preparation coming along? All the ninjutsu scrolls and resources have been sealed and packed. Most clansmen are ready to move. We'll be able to initiate the transfer in about 10 days. Fugaku's face darkened. When I checked our ledgers, I found that the Hokage's advisors have embezzled enormous sums from us over the years. Those parasites, Yuzuru waved his hand dismissively. Don't worry, we'll reclaim everything in due time. But since they're so fond of taking things, let's leave them a few surprises this time. After finalizing details with Fugaku, Yuzuru left. The current Uchiha clan was nothing like the one from the original history that had been annihilated. They hadn't suffered decades of political suppression, nor had they been brainwashed by the so-called will of fire or weakened by Fugaku's passive leadership. So after Yuzuru presented his plans at the clan meeting, most members supported him wholeheartedly. Better to leave than to live under constant surveillance. Without Konoha, the Uchiha would still be a great clan in the shinobi world. And without the Uchiha, what was Konoha, especially now that the Senju had vanished, as for the few remaining pacifists? Ever since Yuzuru killed Yashiro Uchiha, they'd scattered like headless flies, powerless to resist the tide. While lost in thought, Yuzuru heard a cheerful young voice up ahead. "Grandma Riko, let me help you cross the road." "Abaito, dear, thank you, but I'm not actually crossing the road." Really? What a waste of a good deed." The boy's disappointed expression made Riko Uchiha chuckle as she gave his head a light tap. "You silly child. Even if you want to help others, you should at least ask first." Rubbing his head, the boy muttered, "Got it, Grandma Riko." That familiar pair of goggles caught Yuzuru's eye, stirring a mix of emotions. Who could have guessed that this innocent, well-meaning boy would one day bring so much chaos to the world? Shaking his head, Yuzuru stepped forward. "Grandma Riko, I told you before, you should take a cane with you when you go out." Riko smiled warmly. "You're right, Yuzuru. But seeing these lively young ones makes it hard to admit I'm getting old." "Yuzuru," the boy's eyes widened. "You're the Yuzuru Uchiha." Yuzuru reached out and ruffled his hair into a wild mess. "You mean Yuzuru-senpai." "Ah, right, Yuzuru-senpai." Abaito said, pouting as he stepped back, then shouted proudly, "My name's Abaito Uchiha. Someday I'll surpass you." Yuzuru regarded him coolly. "Words like that don't mean much coming from a kid like you." Abaito pointed to himself with a confident grin. "Tomorrow's my first day at the academy. I'll become an amazing ninja, you'll see." Yuzuru blinked. Tomorrow was the academy's enrollment day. So much had been happening within the clan that the village itself still seemed calm. "Yuzuru-senpai, are you listening to me?" Yuzuru looked him over and said, "Don't be late tomorrow." "I won't." "Oh no, oh no, oh no, I'm late." Abaito sprinted through the streets as fast as he could, but when he finally reached the ninja academy, the ceremony banner was already being taken down. The entrance ceremony was over. How pathetic. "If you can't even show up on time, you should give up on being a ninja." The mocking voice came from ahead. Abaito clenched his fists. "What you say, you dead fish-eyed mask-wearing creep? Idiot." Kakashi Hatake rolled his eyes and walked away. "You can't be so slack." "Youth must burn with passion," a voice called out from below. A boy with a bowl haircut and green spandex walked past, doing a handstand. The rest of the students passed Abaito with smirks, some amused, some pitying, some gloating. Soon, the training field was empty except for him. "I messed up again." Abaito lowered his goggles to hide the tears welling in his eyes. He thought he'd have to wait another whole year. Then, a large hand rested gently on his head. "Crying won't solve anything. Here, this is yours." When he looked up, Yuzuru was standing there, holding out an enrollment notice. "Lord Yuzuru, how do you have this?" "Because when I saw you yesterday, I could tell right away you were the type of kid who'd be late, so I came early to pick it up for you." Abaito stared at him, stunned, his nose stinging. They'd only just met yesterday. Yet Lord Yuzuru had gone out of his way to collect his admission form for him. He nearly burst into tears again. He's too kind, way too kind. Chapter 23 vanished late at night. Thick clouds shrouded the moon, and the Uchiha compound lay in utter silence. It looked like any other peaceful evening, calm on the surface, but beneath the stillness, every core member of the clan sat waiting inside their own homes. Tonight was the night of the clan's relocation. Their task was to comfort the elders, women, and children who knew nothing of the plan once the transfer was complete, in a courtyard at the center of the Uchiha compound, under the dim yellow glow of an oil lamp. Teru Uchiha and Fugaku Uchiha sat facing each other, tension in their expressions. For the Uchiha, tonight's operation was a matter of life and death. They trusted Yuzuru completely, but the idea of transferring the entire clan at once was still beyond imagination. Now, all preparations were complete. The arrow was on the bowstring. They could only hope that everything went smoothly for Yuzuru. "Father," Fugaku murmured, growing restless as the minutes dragged by. Do you think Yuzuru can really pull this off? Teru coughed twice before replying quietly, Fugaku, we must believe in him. The room fell silent again, the only sound the occasional flicker of the lamp's wick. Suddenly, Fugaku felt a faint breeze brush past him. When he blinked, the entire world had changed. He was no longer in his home, but in an open field surrounded by nature. Father, shock filled Fugaku's eyes. Yuzuru had done it. He hadn't felt a thing, not a ripple of chakra, not even a flicker of distortion. In an instant, they had been moved to a completely different land. Teru blinked in confusion at the call of his name, then looked around, equally astonished. Fugaku, he succeeded. This should be within the borders of the land of rice fields. Quickly, as planned, gather everyone at the rendezvous point. Hearing faint commotion in the distance, Fugaku straightened. Yes, sir. Konoha village. Uchiha compound. Yuzuru Uchiha opened his eyes, exhaling in relief. He hadn't expected the system's reward to be this powerful. With just a single thought, every Uchiha clansman had vanished, without a sound, without a trace. Looking down at the teleportation scroll that crumbled into ash in his hand, Yuzuru stood and vanished from the room. When he reappeared, he was inside a quiet, traditional chamber. Kushina. Yuzuru, I'm here, from the corner of the room, a girl with long crimson hair dashed out. Yuzuru, did you come to get me? She asked, eyes wide with hope. Yuzuru smiled. That's right. After tonight, you'll never have to live under those watchful eyes again. Kushina nodded eagerly, then frowned. But how are we going to escape? Even though Grandma Mito placed a barrier around this room, the moment I step outside, the Anbu will notice. Yuzuru gestured to his eyes. With the power of my eyes, that won't be a problem. Kushina gasped, covering her mouth. Your eyes, they've changed. The pattern spinning in Yuzuru's eyes was nothing like the ordinary three-tomo Sharingan. It was stronger, more imposing, and more ominous. This is the Mangekyo Sharingan. He explained, a power that surpasses the three-tomo form. If you're curious, I'll tell you all about it once we leave Konoha. Kushina nodded. All right, so what should I do now? I'll transfer you somewhere safe. I've prepared food there. Wait for me. I'll come find you after I finish what needs to be done. Got it. Yuzuru placed a hand on her shoulder and activated Kamui. The space around them rippled, and Kushina vanished without a sound. Once she was gone, Yuzuru's own figure faded from the room as well. Morning. The first rays of sunlight spilled over Konoha. An Anbu stationed to monitor the Uchiha stretched lazily and muttered, Weird, none of the Uchiha are up yet. Usually, by this hour, they'd be opening shops and lighting fires for breakfast. His partner frowned and peered through a telescope toward the compound. Stay here. I'm going to report this to Senpai Sakumo. When the report reached him, Sakumo Hatake's face darkened. It was already past 8, yet none of the Anbu teams stationed around the Uchiha grounds had spotted a single Uchiha outside. What the hell were they up to? After a moment's hesitation, Sakumo made a decision. He would lead a team to investigate in person. It might draw the clan's ire, but he had to find out what was going on. However, when he entered the Uchiha compound, he encountered no resistance at all. The place was eerily quiet. Apart from the chirping of insects and birds, not a single sound could be heard. One of the Anbu whispered, uneasy. This is strange, it's like they vanished overnight. Sakumo's eyes widened. Search everywhere. The moment you find a single Uchiha, signal immediately. The Anbu scattered in all directions. But as minutes passed, Sakumo's heart sank deeper and deeper. They were gone, all of them. Every member of the Uchiha clan had disappeared, completely, silently, right under his watch. How was that even possible? He couldn't make sense of it, but there was no time to dwell. He needed to report to the third Hokage immediately. Hokage's office. Smoke filled the air as Hiruzen Sarutobi puffed calmly on his pipe, signing papers at his desk. Suddenly, the door burst open with a loud bang. Without looking up, Hiruzen snapped. Danzo, how many times have I told you, knock before you enter? Lord Hokage, something's wrong. Startled, Hiruzen raised his head. It wasn't Danzo standing there. It was Sakumo Hatake. Seeing the anxious look on Sakumo's face, an ominous feeling stirred in Hiruzen's chest. What could have possibly happened to shake the unflappable commander of the Anbu Chapter 24 a parting gift? Sakumo, what happened? The Uchiha clan has vanished. Hiruzen Sarutobi's frown deepened. Vanished? What do you mean? They're gone. Sakumo Hatache said grimly. I just led a team to scour the Uchiha compound thoroughly. We didn't find a single Uchiha clan member. It's as if the entire clan disappeared into thin air, leaving no trace behind. Hiruzen shot to his feet, slamming a palm on the desk. Sakumo, you'd better not be joking. Sakumo gave a weary smile. Lord Hokage, I wouldn't dare joke about something like this. Before he could finish, Hiruzen was already striding toward the door. Explain on the way. As they hurried to the Uchiha compound, Sakumo detailed everything that had happened the previous night, how every Uchiha had vanished without warning. The more Hiruzen listened, the more alarmed he became. This was impossible. How could something like this happen even if the Uchiha had developed a way to slip through the village barrier unnoticed? He had Anbu stationed around them 24 hours a day, even if their elite could evade surveillance. What about the elders, the women, the children? It was absurd. They couldn't all have supernatural powers. When Hiruzen arrived and saw the empty streets for himself, he was at a loss. Finally, he muttered, they must be hiding somewhere. Conduct another full search, leave nothing unchecked. Sakumo relayed the order to the Anbu, then said quietly, Lord Hokage, I doubt we'll find anyone. I even checked the secret chamber under Naka Shrine, empty. Every scroll, every supply gone. This was a carefully planned operation. Hiruzen's gaze sharpened. You were in charge of monitoring the Uchiha, he said coldly. You're telling me you noticed nothing unusual? Sakumo stiffened, frustration in his voice. None of us did, Lord Hokage. Every Anbu under me can testify. Enough. Hiruzen waved him off impatiently. No one outside this room is to hear a word about this. Not a rumor, not a whisper. Let's return to the office first. Hokage Tower, Hokage's office, Danzo Shimura, Koharu Utatane, and Himura Mitokado rushed in, their expressions severe. Hiruzen, Himura demanded. What's this we're hearing about the Uchiha clan? Hiruzen opened his mouth to respond, but Danzo cut him off. Hiruzen, the Uchiha clan's disappearance is on you. You bear full responsibility. Rubbing his temples, Hiruzen ignored him and said evenly, You've all heard the report from Anbu. I called you here to discuss our next steps. Hearing this, Himura frowned. Hiruzen, how do you think the Uchiha clan managed to disappear overnight? I don't know. Hiruzen said simply. Koharu stepped forward, thinking aloud. Could they have used some kind of space-time ninjutsu? Hiruzen shook his head. Unlikely. Even if they possessed such techniques, it's impossible that every member could use them, and forcibly transporting non-users would multiply the chakra cost to unimaginable levels. To move that many people at once, the chakra required would be absurd. Danzo snorted. If you ask me, there's only one explanation. They escaped through underground tunnels. Himura frowned. Tunnels, that would take years to build. HMPH, maybe they started digging back when Konoha was founded. Danzo's cold sneer twisted into a grin. It doesn't matter. The Uchiha are gone and good riddance. I've had enough of those uncontrollable fools. At last, he could move openly against them, take their Sharingan for himself. Koharu and Himura exchanged excited glances. If the entire clan had abandoned the village, then their property was now unclaimed. And the Uchiha, being one of the wealthiest clans in Konoha, had fortunes spread across the Fire Country. If they acted quickly, they could seize everything before anyone else caught on. They turned and barked orders to their subordinates outside. Mobilize all elite units. Secure the Uchiha compound. Protect every asset inside. Danzo whispered a few quiet words to the root operatives beside him. Hiruzen, meanwhile, didn't move. He'd already had the Anbu inspect the area earlier, and there was nothing of value left to take. The true treasures lay in the Uchiha's external holdings throughout the Land of Fire. As Hiruzen watched the other counselors scramble like vultures, Sakumo's chest tightened with unease. Shouldn't they be focused on why the Uchiha vanished? On where they went, not this petty greed. He straightened. Lord Hokage, I'll search outside the village perimeter. Maybe I can find a lead. Go ahead, Hiruzen said absently, waving him off as he turned back to his paperwork. Sakumo said nothing more. He dashed from the office and disappeared into the forest beyond Konoha. Daylight faded quickly, and under Hiruzen's strict information lockdown, few in the village noticed anything strange. When night fell, Yuzuru Uchiha stood atop the second Hokage stone face, gazing down at the village below. He watched as greedy shinobi swarmed into the abandoned Uchiha compound like cockroaches, and a cold smile curved his lips. "Greedy parasites," he murmured. "This is my parting gift." He clapped his hands together. A thunderous explosion ripped through the village. In an instant, fire erupted across the Uchiha district. The compound was obliterated, reduced to ash by the countless explosive tags buried beforehand. The shinobi inside were vaporized where they stood. Yuzuru exhaled through his nose, almost regretful. "Shame I haven't learned the great spiraling ring yet. It'd have been perfect for this." Outside the burning ruins, Koharu and Hamura shrieked hysterically. "Cursed Uchiha, you inherently evil clan, we will never rest until you are destroyed." Inside the inferno lay the corpses of their own elite troops. Hiruzen looked at the two advisors, faint disgust on his face, such weak nerves. Pathetic, they were a disgrace to the Hokage line. Just as he was about to speak, an Anbu appeared before him, kneeling. "Lord Hokage, bad news." Hiruzen turned sharply. "What now?" "Uzumaki Kushina is missing." Hiruzen swayed, the world spinning around him. He didn't even need to think. It had to be the Uchiha's doing. The clan's disappearance was one thing, perhaps even a relief. But Kushina, she was the future Ninetales Jinchuriki. Without her, who would contain the Ninetales after Mito's death? Those accursed Uchiha. Hiruzen snarled under his breath. "Do you mean to destroy Konoha itself?" Chapter 25, The White Fang of Konoha outside the village of Konoha. A slight curve lifted Yuzuru Uchiha's lips as he looked at the village, which had begun to stir with commotion. With such chaos unfolding, even Hiruzen Sarutobi wouldn't be able to suppress the truth. By sunrise, everyone would know. The Uchiha clan had left Konoha. A Konoha without the Senju, was it still worthy of the name? A Hokage without the Uchiha, was he still a Hokage? Yuzuru darted swiftly through the forest, his figure flickering between the trees. He didn't use Kamui. Wasting his Dojutsu power just to travel was not worth the cost. Then in the next instant, a figure flashed past him. Yuzuru stopped sharply as the stranger turned and blocked his path. Yuzuru Uchiha, the man's silver-white hair gleamed faintly in the moonlight. Yuzuru raised an eyebrow. "Sakumo Hatache, where did the Uchiha go? What's your goal? Why did your clan betray Konoha?" If anyone could answer the questions burning in his mind, it was surely the man standing before him. Hearing this, Yuzuru said flatly, "This village is filled with darkness and has long since violated the original intention with which we founded it. We will do what was done once before, remake the shinobi world into true peace." Sakumo's heart tightened. The last time two men spoke like that, Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, they ended the chaos of the Warring States era through force. Could it be that the Uchiha planned to start another war? He took a slow breath, then said firmly, "The village now possesses true peace. The will of fire burns in every heart. People live together in harmony. How can you speak of darkness and decay?" Sakumo wasn't a man of many words, but this matter was too important. If there was any chance to reason with Yuzuru, he had to try. "Ha ha 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 ha." Yuzuru's laughter cut through the forest air like a blade. "Sakumo, where do you find the courage to say something so naive? True peace. You mean the kind where another shinobi war breaks out every few years?" Subscribe for more amazing novel audiobooks. Don't forget to like, comment, and share Infinite Novel Audio. The Will of Fire. Is that what you call sending 6-year-old children to die on the battlefield, while Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo Shimura sit comfortably in their offices, enjoying power and privilege? And harmony? You mean the Anbu's constant, baseless surveillance of the Uchiha every hour of every day? When the roots are rotten, how can the leaves possibly thrive? Sakumo faltered, speechless. After a long silence, he muttered, almost defensively, "It's all for the greater good." "Self-deception," Yuzuru said coldly. "That's just the excuse of those who have already benefited from the system. When someone tells you to think of the greater good, it means you're not part of it. When someone tells you sacrifice is necessary, it means you're the sacrifice. When someone tells you to look at the big picture, it means you're meant to give up what's rightfully yours. This time, the Uchiha will decide our own fate." Sakumo clenched his fists, unable to find a counterargument. At last, he sighed. "Yuzuru Uchiha, no matter what your grievances are, you're coming back with me." And if I refuse, Sakumo drew the short blade from his back, his chakra flaring like a blade of pure intent. Then I'll take you by force. Yuzuru smiled faintly. Then try me. Before the words had even faded, Sakumo vanished. A streak of blinding white light tore through the air toward Yuzuru's chest. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. A massive fireball erupted, engulfing the light. But in the next instant, the white flash split the flames cleanly in two, cutting forward with unstoppable force. Clang Yuzuru drew his blade, sparks flying as he deflected Sakumo's strike. Then the two clashed in a flurry of motion, so fast it was almost invisible. Steel sang again and again through the forest, slicing through branches and scattering leaves like storms of shrapnel. Even with the Mangekyo Sharingan's enhanced vision, Yuzuru felt the pressure mounting. Impressive, Sakumo Hatache. Your swordsmanship, sharp, precise, lethal. Among all the opponents I've faced, you may well be the strongest. Sakumo's style was simple, fast, accurate, ruthless. Every strike went straight for a vital point, and his speed bordered on inhuman. Most jonin wouldn't survive more than a few exchanges against that onslaught. But it was Sakumo who now found himself astonished. He had thought defeating Yuzuru would be effortless. Yet every attack, every feint, every burst of chakra had been countered. And this person was only a 14-year-old boy. Clang. Their blades locked one last time before both sprang back. Yuzuru stood calm, his breathing steady. Sakumo's killing intent began to burn hotter. If he let Yuzuru escape, Konoha could be in grave danger. Forgive me, Sakumo murmured. Everything I do is for Konoha. He inhaled deeply, focusing his chakra until it roared through his body like lightning. Then he vanished, moving faster than the eye could see, his blade cutting clean through the air and the trees beyond. The shockwave cleaved through the forest for meters ahead, felling trunks like paper. But from behind him came a voice, calm, mocking. Was that your strongest attack? Cold sweat broke out across Sakumo's forehead. That last strike he had missed. Turning slowly, he saw a pair of crimson eyes glowing in the moonlight, unearthly, filled with swirling, otherworldly power. Yuzuru's blade hung loosely in his hand as he advanced step by step, Dejutsu power radiating like a storm. There's movement nearby, voices shouted in the distance. Go check it out. Several shouts came from a short distance away, and Yuzuru Uchiha stopped. This fight ends here, Sakumo. Remember my words, you're destined to become a sacrifice of politics. As the air around him distorted, Yuzuru's figure dissolved into rippling space. His final words echoed through the trees. My eyes have already seen your future. For a long moment, Sakumo stood tense, every nerve on edge. Only when a dozen Anbu appeared around him did he finally let out a long, shaky breath. That last moment, Yuzuru's presence had been suffocating. Those eyes, what were they? A cold wind swept through the trees and Sakumo shivered. He suddenly noticed his clothes, drenched in sweat. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for supporting the channel and enjoying these novel audiobooks. Every subscribe, like, and comment helps us grow faster. If you love revenge stories, overpowered MCs, rebirth novels, and fantasy audiobooks, make sure to subscribe and join the journey.